1, 2, 3. Awesome. You're very small. That's fine. Like, get out of your seats and take it in front and close on it.
They really did get together.
Yeah, I'm staying on top of
You
things.
share that with us, right?
Post it on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's my permission. You don't have my permission to put it on Facebook.
But it's a public environment,
I
so.
know.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Everyone all set?
I think so.
All good? All right. I would like to call to order this January 18th, 2024 meeting of the Home Rule Commission. As far as preliminary matters go, the very first item is the roll call. And I will turn it over to town staff to take the roll.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners Vallette,
Present.
Foster,
Here.
Folsom,
Here.
Chu,
Here.
Craycraft,
Here.
Dixon, here, Hanson,
Here.
Hitchler,
Here.
and Welch.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hanson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Folsom. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Individuals are encouraged to make public comment either in the town hall itself or on Zoom. Please be mindful of the 5-minute time limit in making statements, either in person or virtually. And please be respectful of commissioners' time and town staff time during the meeting itself. Any questions from the public can be asked before or after the meeting itself. With that, do we have anyone who would like to make public comment? Yep. Come on up to right over here, and please state your name and your town of residence, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Jesse Kumin, Kumin. I live in Boulder. I know it's a little curious that I would come here for a charter meeting coming from Boulder. A lot of times I've seen charter commissions just kind of jump into designing methods of representation that are fairly traditional, and the usual debate seems to be over whether or not to do at-large systems where everybody is elected from the entire town. And this happened in Broomfield and Erie and other places that have recently gone through charter commissions. And another approach has been to do ward systems where you have one single individual will represent a ward. And a lot of people aren't aware of proportional representation, which is a multi-member district system where you would have, say, 7 members of the city council all elected at large, but you use proportional counting methods. And with proportional systems, you can actually represent everybody in the city. Whereas with single member districts, you end up with one point of view representing different wards. So the counting method is a little tricky, and most people have heard the term ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is a euphemism for instant runoff voting. And the way that applies to single member districts. With a multi-member district, you can, the greater the number of people in the district, the more diversity you can have. So in Denmark, they average 13.5 members per district for the parliament. And cities in Sweden There's one city about 3/4 of the size of Denver that is Gothenburg, and they have 81 members in the city council that are all elected at large, and they have 10 different parties as a result of that. So basically, the more members you have per district, the more diversity you can have and the more points of view you can represent. And the question to ask when you're designing the city council and how it's selected is, how much diversity do you want to achieve? Do you want to just represent one or two points of view, or do you want to represent every point of view in the city? You can do that with a system that's ranking, but in a multi-member district. It's called single transferable vote. They used it in a Senate election in the state of Victoria in Australia. And they actually had 8 members, 8 different parties elected in a 12-member district with 38 parties on the ballot. So you can design a ballot, and you can design ballot access so that you have a wide diversity of people. I think that's the question that you want to keep in mind as you're designing how people are represented, how diverse you want it to be, if you want it to include everyone, or if you want to exclude large blocks of people. And if you want to exclude people, you should go with a single member district system. And if you want to include everyone, you should go with a multi-member district system. And I would suggest that you look at having a single transferable vote system for Superior. It would be very representative. It's very inclusive. It's impossible to gerrymander, and you can come out with results that include everybody. So does anyone have any questions about how single transferable vote works?
I'm sorry, you're at time right now. Thank you very much for your comment.
Sure.
Any other comments? Any comments on Zoom?
I was going to say, Celeste gave us a presentation on that before, but I see
I'm assuming no public comments on Zoom. With that, we can close out the public comment section. The next item for public and community engagement is a discussion on proposed actions to engage the public and community in the charter drafting process. So, Catherine, I wanted to see if you wanted to spearhead this, because we had a couple of different conversations on how we as commission members can best engage with the public, be respectful of open meetings laws, and proceed going forward as individuals and as commission members to just educate the public about the home rule process.
Sure. So I think there's quite a few avenues. You need to comply with the open meeting. So if there's 3 or more of you need to notice it as a meeting, and that's fine. The town can do that for you. We can notice it up. You can have a town hall. People come and talk to you about things in the charter just outside of these very structured meetings, if you want to do that. You can do things in pairs if you prefer, or anything like that. Any kind of, I don't know, coffee or whatever you want to do with people, whatever interests people. And you certainly can do it as individuals. I think one thing to be mindful of is especially when you're out in pairs or you're out as an individual, that you are speaking as yourself, the single or, pair of commissioners on the charter. You're not speaking for the commission as a whole in that. So that message needs to be really clear. Putting stuff out, either on social media or however you want to get that information out, I think that's fine. I think, again, it's about how you're expressing, if someone says, you want to write an update, like, here's what we did at the meeting and this is what we talked about and something like that, and you're writing as a single charter commission member, that just needs to be clear. And if it's neutral and it's just a recitation of like, here's the things we talked about, then it's less concerning. But if you're like, and I think we should do this, and no, then it needs to be clear that it's just a single commissioner's view and stuff like that and encouraging people. So you have lots of options. And I think it would just be helpful for you all to talk about what you want to do. I mean, it's hard to get public engagement for the drafting of a legal document. I mean, you know, if I wasn't being paid, I don't know, I'd be here. No offense, you're lovely people and I love coming and I'm happy to help you, but, you know, I can understand why the public's not coming here in droves and stuff like that. So, and you know your community a lot better than I do, so you know what might work, so.
And what would be the process just for our own edification to potentially get something cleared? Would we reach out to individual town staff members? Would we reach out to yourself?
To town staff, yeah.
What do you mean by cleared?
Yeah, as far as like cleared goes, if we wanted to have, let's say, a running blog or statements or posts on any sort of social media sites, there's a very active Superior community and 0027 groups. If we wanted to detail updates or topics that were being discussed, at what level do we really need to kind of get this information clear, or at what level can we just post as an individual?
I think if you want to post as an individual or on some other non-town supported site, you don't need to clear that with staff. You might let them know, hey, I posted this or something like that, just so they have an idea what's out there and they're not caught off guard, but you don't need to clear any of that. Now, I don't know what the town does regarding posting on the town-supported social media, but that definitely would need to be cleared, so.
And, yep.
No, I mean, so clearly you had some ideas. I don't know if you want to share those and then we can, I had another thought as
Yeah,
well, but I'll let you go.
so one of my thoughts was, you know, getting the post-mortem on the meeting, you know, talking to Heather, you know, less the staff, it's a little slow to get the notes out. If I can talk to Heather one-on-one, you're saying as far as her notes go, even if it's a picture of it, I can then digest that, post it on social media, try to get people to attend and engage in the topics that we discussed from Heather's notes. That's okay.
I don't see a legal issue with that at all. We might want to run it by Martin to make sure he's comfortable with that, but legally, no, that's fine.
I think where it could get tricky though is you put the information out there and then people do start engaging. It's like, well, I think you should have done it this way, or I think you should have done it that way. And then I think it can get tricky to, I guess you could relay more of the why we did something a certain way to give people a better explanation. But perhaps a default is, hey, come to the meeting, talk to the group, or get on Zoom, talk to the group, express those. We're not done until we're done. I mean, we're doing the second review tonight, and I've got some comments on stuff we did the first time, and I think that's great. And so I think that could be the message to the public that might have an issue with something hey, come and express that, and we'll have another go at it if it's warranted.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say I agree from that perspective. I mean, I think the danger of putting it out there is people are going to comment on it. I think even trying to say this is why we did something, then you're speaking as the charter group as opposed to an individual. So I think if anything, if you were going to put something out there, it would be turn off the comments and say, here's what was discussed. You want to do that, come on down, or here's an email address that you can send to the whole commission to give your feedback, and then everyone can provide feedback that way. If the issue, which I think I'm hearing, is that getting the formal minutes out is happening much longer than the time between meetings, then I think that's a great way to take what we have, the notes that you get from Heather or whatever, and put it out there. I think a more appropriate way, if possible, would be that town staff just post something from the Town of Superior site saying, these are the meeting minutes from there, because it's all public record at that point in time, and this is next week's agenda. Have any feedback? Here's an email address you can send everything to, and come on down to the meeting, join the Zoom meeting, something along that line. And then, and then maybe there's a caveat that says you're welcome to reach out to any of the individual commissioners as well if you'd like to share your thoughts.
Yeah, I think all fair and good. I guess where I'm coming from is to get public engagement on this, which is actually very fascinating topics we've discussed just last week.
Yeah.
I don't know that a message of, hey, we're talking about home rule, it's the town charter going forward, you should participate, generic sort of topics and saying people to encourage to come. Dalton tried that, I tried that before the commission was even formed to get people involved and try to understand what people thought about a town charter. No one showed up. And so I think if we were to express what topics specifically, maybe without expressing the viewpoints of the charter, is probably something to at least spark an interest, like, well, what are you talking about? Like,
But I think that's what I mean by putting out the minutes and putting out the agenda of, this is what we discussed last week.
Yeah.
This is what the conclusions we came to, and this is what we're going to discuss on the next meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we can go much further than that, because then we're expressing a viewpoint of the commission beyond that. I mean,
just stepping back, just so I'm clear with all the commission members, my goal here is to not ourselves get caught off guard where we do all this work for the next few months and then suddenly it gets out in the ether and someone goes, how on earth did they come to that conclusion? When we had every opportunity for every 2 weeks to try to get them to engage.
Welcome to town government.
Wow.
Well, there's going to be an official kind of invite the public kind of thing, where we present everything, right? Or isn't that part of the
Yes.
process?
We can do it anytime we want. I mean, it's up to us to make a motion to say, I want a meeting every month if we want.
You can have multiple.
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
That's our purview.
And I'll just add that I think the first Fridays that a lot of the town board members show up to, I think Ryan and I showed up at the first Friday, and there were a number of people, but it was right after the holiday, so I think attendance was down. But to me, that's a really good way of trying to get information about home rule and what we're trying to do and get community engagement. So I know those are publicly noticed, and maybe we could ask town staff to just add home rule charter committee members just so we're above board, but all the above.
And one of the ideas, I had the fortune to meet with a lot of individuals one-on-one, just trying to raise awareness. I had an idea of reaching out to some of the middle school and high school social studies teachers, seeing if students could potentially get extra credit for attending in person or via Zoom any of these meetings. Would that be something permissible or above board? And would you recommend an individual doing that, or from the Home Rule Commission email, for instance?
I think if the Home Rule Commission gives you permission, you or somebody else, to do that from the commission as an invite from the commission, you can do that. You can say this is what the commission is inviting these people to come.
Okay.
I think that's great. I had a Boy Scout troop in my meeting
Yeah.
earlier, so,
And we also have the Superior Youth Leadership Council here. I think that would be a welcome invite as well, to see if they want to be engaged or at least hear about the process too. And then that also instills with them potential personal incentives for extra credit for a different class, but also then their parents might ask, oh, well, where are you going? What are you doing? Oh, they talked about, they're talking about these different subjects at Home Rule. Oh, I didn't know about Home Rule, what's going on there. And the kids can suddenly become the teachers. So I thought that could be an option as well.
Yeah, I think getting the Youth Leadership Council to help you bring in their friends, their peers from their schools into the meetings would be great.
Yeah. Any other?
I don't know where we're at this. I'd be happy to make a motion at a minimum to say, I think at a minimum, we should be getting some notes, whether it's from one person on here or from town staff, to say, hey, this was the agenda last night, and this is the agenda next week. At least get that posted on the Superior community site, as well as obviously the email blast, and with kind of the generic email. And that's the minimum we can do, and we should be doing anyways, if we haven't. So if you want to call that a motion, I can make that a motion, or we want
Just
to
a
discuss it
motion
more, we can
to,
discuss it more.
just a motion to have like the town staffs, the town's official like social media handles posting this.
And just putting out what was discussed, what's going to be discussed, and all the minutes thereof. Even if the minutes aren't done, we can at least say, last night this was the agenda. Next week this is the agenda, and then when the minutes are formalized, we can send that out as well. But I think that's the bare minimum we should be doing anyways.
I mean, what is everyone's kind of thought process with that? Just having at a minimum the town's formal like Instagram, Facebook, X, Twitter accounts send out like just an update maybe the day after or 2 days after the agenda and the minutes.
Yeah, I mean, great. I worry that they're clobbered with 100 other
I
things.
think what I heard Jeff say was that we would do what Ryan's wanting to do, is Ryan would send out. Is that right?
I don't care, either way.
Okay.
I'm just saying, we should be getting something out if we're not already.
As far
That's
as
all
the-
I'm saying at this stage, I appreciate that.
As far as a motion goes, I don't know if that's necessary if just Ryan wants to post or an individual does. I think a motion would be necessary if we wanted town staff to have their formal, like Superior .gov accounts going on to these different sites. But I think as far as an individual goes,
Are they already?
Yeah.
Doing that.
I mean, that's the whole thing, right? They don't show up on my, I don't see them in the Superior community feed per se, but.
I don't want to, I could be wrong about this, but I think the minutes are actually posted faster. They're posted, they'll like post next
I
week.
think, I'm sorry.
Okay, and I think the agenda follows, yeah.
Are they just posted on the website, or are they actually sent out via the email blast and the Superior community page and the things along those lines?
Look at Facebook.
That's a market question. I know that they go on the website, but I can't answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know at least from emails, I get emails and they have details with those. But if they're posted on a specific, like, let's say Facebook group, I'm not 100% certain how consistent that is. But I also know it's tough because those are privately run groups by individuals too.
Sure.
Okay, I don't remember
One last point of
emails.
clarification. You talked about middle school and high school. I want to reach out to the elementary schools in Superior. I know the principal at Superior, for example, and say, hey, is there any way to get this on the agenda for 4th and 5th graders or whatever it is? Do I need to run that through the entire team here and legal, or do I just go do that?
I would ask your commission members if they're okay with that. You do not need to run that by me.
Is that an email, or do I need to do it in a formal meeting?
I do it right now.
It's already done.
I think you'll get your answer right now.
Again, if all you're doing is inviting people to come join,
Yeah.
have at it. Invite all the
Yeah.
people you want in the world.
Yeah.
If you're trying to say we did X because, then I don't think you should do that. Because we didn't do that.
your opinion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You say, I voted this way, then that's fine, but I think that's a real.
Got it.
So it sounds like your main concern is just, getting to the end of the process, we present it April 29th and find out that people are not happy with
Yeah.
some different points.
For sure. I'm very worried about it. That's my primary concern, actually.
Well,
So I
I can guarantee there will be people that come in. If you watch that Erie meeting, there was people in that meeting that like, hey, what's this? I never heard of this. And then, they strategically went through all the different points. And I think what you're wanting to do is good, because it adds yet another set of points of ways we reached out. I mean, it's impossible to get to everyone who will potentially be disappointed that they didn't know about it. But the more we can do and staff can do, and I think staff's already got a whole lot of bases covered, and if we can cover additional bases and we can be at Chili Fest and engage, I mean, we're going to do what we can do. I think we'll be fine. But I would fully expect that we'll still get those people. But I think the more points that we can point to just makes that discussion easier.
Yep.
So thanks for bringing that up.
Yep.
Any other?
So I just need clarification.
Oh, yeah.
So you are saying, because I've been looking at my email, I don't see any town of Superior emails on the home rule charter or anything, so. if you're
It's
saying-
not specific, like, I know, at least the emails that I've received, it's not like specific home rule. It's part of like a weekly email that says like all the town events that are going
On the
on.
bottom.
Yeah.
There's the monthly, here's the monthly one. Okay.
So I've gotten emails with those and saying like, there's town board meeting on Monday and then ACE.
Okay, so just
Yeah.
the events coming.
Yeah.
Do we want something more than that, or do you think it will get lost? I'm looking specifically around, because I know he's very.
Monthly, something for the town of Superior, specifically around home rule, would be fantastic if we can get it.
Like in the newsletter. Can't you
Yeah,
put something
but
in the
like
newsletter?
subject line.
Yeah,
top
but you
level,
can say, because
top
we used to, didn't we put in the monthly newsletter what the board went over and the things we voted on and all that? I mean, couldn't we do the same thing, that these are the articles that the commission reviewed and discussed, and please come down and give your input on it at the next meeting, and just give them a schedule of the meetings? I mean, that can be put in the newsletter, correct?
How often does the newsletter go out?
Monthly?
Okay. Would you be willing to put that together as a group and take that burden off of staff of writing that?
Yes, but
Okay.
how can we, this
You
goes
do
back
it-
to the open meeting. Do we have to meet as a team or can we do it over email?
No, you can't do it over email. So one of you would be in charge of, like Heather here,
Yeah.
doing the minutes. One of you would be in charge of drafting that. We bring it to the meeting. It'd be an agenda item. You could talk about it. I wanted to say this. This is what it should say. So it comes from all of you.
So how,
Yeah.
so how receptive are you to, I mean, so we've gone through our draft. We have a couple sections that we're gonna say these draft pieces we've completed. Is the harm or danger of sharing and publishing that draft to that point?
No, the draft is it's in your packet. It's public. Oh yeah, the document's public.
I mean, that's maybe the easiest way to share something for people as opposed to trying to dissect all the
That's
conversations
fine.
we've had.
That's fine.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
One thing you might consider is, and you can tell me if you don't like it, but is to I don't know that Article 1 is all that important to everybody. I mean, we have it in there, it's more than stuff, but to hit the highlights to we discuss voting and these are the different options we talked about and really summarizing, because we can, more than happy to give them the document, but the public they're not going to read it.
Right.
So kind of summarizing Article 2 is about elections and this is why it matters and that kind of thing, so.
Just one thing, when on OSAC, we had to come up with a 1-paragraph summary of each meeting, right? And that was what went into the newsletter. We don't have the same, it doesn't sound like, from this, but that's almost what we're asking for, is the 1-paragraph summary of what we covered and then come down to the next meeting. So, but it fits into all the other committees or chartered, like the whole process fits. We just, and there, we didn't have to approve it at the next meeting, it was, someone just needed to submit it within 2 days of the meeting being done.
And who was doing the submission? Was it?
Just one of the charter
Oh, really?
members.
Okay.
So if that's sufficient, maybe that works.
Well, if you guys are okay with saying to someone, okay, you're in charge, do the summary, then you don't want to bring it back and approve it, that's your call.
The hard part is it just would be a month delayed, right? It would be, 2 weeks. Or 2 week delayed.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the cycle of the
So-
newsletter, yeah.
No.
But I guess the only issue that comes back is, so you say one person's gonna do that, then how does any feedback go back to
Yeah,
that
exactly.
person? That's
It's
like-
a pain in the butt.
I just have to trust that they're gonna summarize it right.
I don't know if I want that responsibility. Like, what if I summarize in a way that's
It's best
geared
effort,
towards
right?
my-
I don't
Just put
know.
your email down at the bottom there.
I think probably the best,
For concerns.
I think probably the best, easiest way is just we individually shout from the rooftops, come join this thing as best and as often as we can. Is what I'm hearing.
Well, I mean, I'm not honestly anticipating a ton of controversy coming out of this committee, coming out of the process, unless, I don't think thus far we've really made any dramatic changes or, so,
I think so too. I think we're going to talk about eminent domain at some point. We already kind of have.
yeah. So, yeah, there might
I've already
be,
I've already talked to some people who say, if that's in there, I'm voting it down.
Right. So, I mean, I think there might be like a handful of hot button topics like that, but I would say probably at least 80-85% of it
It's
is
pretty benign. I agree.
Right. Yeah. Like.
But it's the one
not-
sentence that people
Yeah.
hate that can crush
Yeah.
this whole thing.
So I think maybe we'll probably recognize when we're discussing something that might be one of those issues, and those might be the highlights to kind of engage with. And already I've just kind of informally just been talking to people, hey, what are your thoughts on proportional voting, and just kind of taking the temperature of the people that I know. Probably the reason a lot of us are elected is because we have a lot of connections, so I think you can just kind of have those informal conversations and get some feedback and bring that back. Not that, we shouldn't be doing other things.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm just not quite as worried about like a huge backlash, and at least so far.
I'm not concerned about big backlash, but I think the more that we get information out there and let the community know what we're doing, what's coming up, the better off we are. I agree with Ryan that it could be one thing that just scuttles the whole thing, and we want to avoid that. So I think the more we put out there, the better off we are.
So it seems like right now, maybe just trust individuals. If you want to talk to people, talk about that we're going to be discussing this topic, this is the agenda for the upcoming meeting, sharing individually the notes that are published afterwards to other individuals, that's completely fine. Everyone is able to do that. That's above board. We don't need to worry about getting approval or running it through one of these respective meetings. And that's not running afoul of open meetings law.
Right.
As far as the newsletter, the monthly newsletter, can't we have, town staff has a person that writes a lot of the articles, correct? So can't we have that person help write a nice short article just summarizing what we did? So we're not putting the burden on anyone who doesn't do that normally.
Above my pay grade, I'm happy to talk to Martin about it, but I can't make that commitment on his behalf. So I can certainly make that request of him. So see what he says.
I would almost rather have somebody on the commission write it and have town staff edit it for clarity and continuity, not changing the content.
Just from a timing perspective, it comes out the 1st of February, so it's got to be, whatever is done is going to have to be done pretty quickly. And I think at a minimum, just having a section in the newsletter that we have a home rule commission, they're working, here's a link to the draft that they've done thus far. I think that at a minimum would be great. I don't think, those e-newsletters, there's not a lot of real estate for, in the newsletter. There's a lot of links anyway, so we're not going to get a big article in there anyway. So some people have got to click through, and I think if at a minimum, just a very quick summary of we're in the process and here's a link to the work thus far. I think that would be great. And then perhaps at the March newsletter, we can maybe go, maybe that at that point we can draft, and we will have a lot more work product done at that point, and we can say, here's what we've done thus far, and here's opportunities to engage with us, and so on.
There's also the quarterly magazine that they're putting out, which is even more involved. Like, we probably all just got it, right? There was a section on us in there. Maybe that would be a time for us to craft something to say, here's how far we're along, here are the key decisions, right? There's more real estate there, so something to consider. But I think that's April. So we have not a ton of time, but something to think about.
So if we need a motion to get staff to do something, I would kind of follow on at a minimum. The staff put something in the newsletter that has, the appropriate links of what work we're doing. Maybe a link to the draft of where it's at. Probably just a list of the articles, such that people, and then some comment that we're going in order of those articles. And that's, because we can't list the agendas going forward because we don't know them as we're working it out each individual one. But
and encourage the community to be involved. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, if you need a motion, I'll call it a motion. If it's clear enough.
I don't know that we need a motion for that.
I don't know.
I think that's just
General
direction.
consensus, I got it, yeah.
General recommendation, town staff, yeah. All right. That gonna cover that subject?
Just one more thing. It'd be nice, I know Martin he was at at least one of the meetings, but it'd be nice to have town staff involved, engaged in the meetings. And, the town manager, perhaps Martin, I'm not sure if anybody else from town staff would need to be involved, but it'd be nice to have them give some dialogue and discussion on, they've got a lot of history in the town and, what works, what doesn't work, and it'd be nice to get some input on it. So can we ask town staff to, not force them, but ask them to be a part of this and engage us? What's the rest of the group feel about that?
I heard them say at the beginning that they were going to rotate.
And they are.
Different staff members. So Emily's here tonight. She's going to do an AV and in here, so it's a little bit of a both. But I think that is happening. They're rotating around.
Are they rotating just to moderate and to be here as staff members, or are they actually here to participate? I was thinking it'd be nice to have them actually participate.
Yeah.
I know in the past we've reached out with Martin and asked specific questions of him. So I think if we need Emily to come in and answer any sort of questions, that's doable.
I think the only concern with that in any of these sort of processes that are driven by a commission being elected to write a charter goes back to, I appreciate completely that they have the experience with how the town runs and what could or couldn't work. I think some of the perceptions might be, hey, if you're putting a town staff stamp and influence onto what the charter commission's writing, then it could be perceived as being skewed one way or another. So I think that's the concern with trying to say, oh, well, we want to hear it, and they come back and say, well, wards are too difficult or whatever, blah, 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 or it's gonna be really difficult to implement that, then you kind of move away from the purity of what the commission is.
I just got it out of reading this. It was I took it off of here. I go, wow, that's a great idea. I mean, it'd be great to get some input from them, but it was recommended in here. So,
But, yeah, and I'm thinking maybe as we get the charter kind of formed into what we want, or where we're at, then maybe there can be some feedback along those lines, just like we would with the public as well. Maybe that's a session we set as, hey, here's a level of the draft, and love to get kind of staff's feedback on that.
perfect, yeah, that's good.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think with that, we can probably move on to the next item, which is actually reviewing of the charter sections. We have a lot to cover, including our very first kind of second reading of Article 1 General Provisions.
All right. I don't know if you want to, it's your call. I don't care if the light's turned off or not, and I don't know if it's helpful or not.
Yeah, would
Go with
we?
the lights off?
Yeah.
And can you zoom in a little,
Maybe
just a little on the bottom right?
Yeah, on the bottom.
over here?
Yeah,
Just to plus that a little.
there we go.
Okay, maybe, okay. I'm sorry. I don't have the softest touch. How's that? Great.
Perfect. And then I think we can probably just go through, does anyone have any initial thoughts, questions, comments on any of these specific sections as we're reading through them?
I had a question about 1.04, item 4. The right to succeed to all rights and liability of town. What is the right to succeed to all rights? What is
So everything the town currently has the right to do, like, let's say, under contracts or something like that, that they're currently in, when you transition to home rule, you have all the same rights. In addition, you have all the same liabilities.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
It's old-fashioned language.
Yep.
Sorry, can you go back up to the,
Sure.
I just,
Where'd you want to go?
I just didn't read the authority section.
Oh.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, comments on any of these portions?
I guess I'll just say, I know we're gonna get there later tonight, but we had that discussion about.
Claire, I think your mic
Yeah, you
needs to be on.
Sorry, must have turned off. We had the discussion about whether, how that would work, whether the town could sell open space or parks. I noticed that in the Erie Charter, in their section on their open space committee, did you see that? They outlined that the town could not dispose of any designated open space in that section. So that might give us some clarity on what to do with this line here.
And do we want to keep that line kind of as is, or maybe add a stipulation, even just so far as like additional details found in open space section, and line it up with the exact section header?
I was just thinking, like, maybe after we go over that whole section, then it'll give us some more sense on what to
And
do
that's
with
why
this.
I left that note in there
Yeah.
to keep that annotation in there.
And these are, correct me if I'm wrong, this is sort of a generic list of rights the town has. And so is there a catch statement that should be pursuant to this charter or something like that in the top phrase? Because obviously the charter itself could potentially put some more restrictions on some of these items. Like the public works and all that stuff gets done, that's permitted by law. So you include that, because I think that's effectively what you're addressing. There's a much bigger section later on about open space and trails. What are we going to call it? There's a whole lot of conversations we're going to have when it gets to that one. That'll be one of those hot buttons, right?
You could put that in there. This is, I think you could, I think the only language I would suggest, if you want to put a reference into the charter, there is one only about ordinances though, but you could put except by limit, is limited by this charter. somewhere in there, in this first sentence, you could put that. It's kind of implied. If the charter has a limitation in it, it's going to trump a general statement like this. So it's up to you.
This is a general statement.
These are general statements, yeah.
So I'm fine leaving it as a general statement, but if that feels better that way, then we can do it.
Any thoughts on leaving that in place or adding kind of an additional statement at the onset?
I guess, and I'm going to have a question in Article 2 that's going to be similar, is I think I have a hard time at this moment making that decision until we get further through it. And I know we're calling this a second reading, but obviously towards the end when we have the whole document, I think for me, I want to have clarity, and I think a lot of us do, on where these sections of more definition are in the document. So I guess that's where I would want to aim, is reserve the right to make a few changes towards the end.
Yep,
I can put a note in there if that's what you guys would like.
Yeah, we'll have opportunities to come back and follow up, especially as we have kind of closer to the final document in hand.
So something pursuant to the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hopefully I know what that means in a month. All right, anything else in Article 1?
All right.
All
Go
right.
to Article 2.
I have 2.02, the second paragraph. We currently, I don't see any reason why we would want to change it. We currently say, I think it's take office at the first regular meeting of the council following the election, not after the new year.
I would agree with that. I flagged that as well. So it's the first meeting after the election's been certified.
Yeah.
So it's not the next, it's not necessary, it could be the next meeting, but it's usually.
After certification.
It could skip a meeting, you might skip
Yeah,
a meeting.
the certification usually is the end of November, because you're going to run coordinated elections more often than not. And so that's going to be the end of November. So you're going to have maybe someone, if you want to seat them before January, they'd be seated in December, so.
Yes, and that's, we typically have a December meeting, or one meeting in December. I mean, and they typically skip the second meeting in November anyway, just because it usually falls around Thanksgiving week.
And that's why, for two reasons. I think one, because you usually only have one meeting in December because of holidays. And the other one is getting into budget issues. You don't want a new council coming in the middle of, like, if you, for some reason, you haven't done your budget, and having that new council member or council members be charged with suddenly understanding the budget that they may or may not have been involved in. Those are the two big reasons why it's pushed to January.
So are you suggesting we leave it the new year, or?
It's your call, but I'm just explaining why you see the new year. The two basic reasons are, to have kind of a lame duck council come to one meeting and do things, I don't know, just what I've seen preferences over the years.
Okay.
I agree with what you're saying. I think it's better the way we've always done it, which is basically the first meeting after it's certified, you swear in the new members. I think that just makes more sense. I completely agree, and I suspect that's why this was written in this way from other towns, is the budget issue, since that gets approved then. But hey, people coming in shouldn't be prepared for a fire hose and of information. And I think it's appropriate for them to learn that way.
But I think staff has, at least all the years I was involved with, the staff always took great care to get the budget done, well in advance of that, and they always did a great job with that.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on potentially updating this verbiage so it's individuals get sworn in following certification?
Do we have a sense of how many other communities in Colorado have newly elected officials, take office in January as opposed to December?
I think if I had to just guess, non-scientific survey, more go in January than in December.
Yeah. And that would be my preference as well, but I think it sounds like there could be a conversation about that.
I had a simple thought, which is we've always done it the first meeting, and it's never been a problem, never been an issue whatsoever. So I don't know why we want to change it or what's driving us to change it that way.
I did notice that's what the Eagle Charter says. The first regular meeting following the election, or maybe it's following certification of the election.
I think Louisville's the same way.
I personally don't have a strong preference, so whichever one's kind of the group would like to go with, I think I'm totally fine with updating that verbiage so it's after certification, if that's just kind of more what Superior in general has done, and it doesn't seem like that's been an issue. Yeah.
I think the people that, are rotating off the board, they kind of want to be done. And the people that are coming on, they want to get started. So I think this, after the certification, I think it achieves those, versus waiting another month.
And then another difference I noticed was the Eagle says the municipal elections take place in odd numbered years, but the Erie one says even number years. I just want to make sure that's in line with how things work here.
Yeah, I know the language has
We're
been
even.
updated. Yeah,
Okay.
we're even.
And then another, go ahead.
You're even numbered.
We're
now,
even, okay,
yeah.
so that's correct.
Just to close that thought, I'm sorry, before we jump into this. So are we making the change or are we not making the change in terms of certification?
I'm fine with
Sounds like making the change.
for
Yeah,
certification.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to take out the new year part. The
Yes.
certification part is really, really important, and I probably
Oh, yeah.
will
Right.
step in and say, don't take that part
Yeah,
out.
no, not
Yeah.
the certification, yeah, the
First
new
meeting
year.
after certification.
Yep,
Yeah.
so the first regular meeting of the town council after following certification, yeah. So we just take out in the new year part, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, that's good. I think in general, I really don't really want to change things that are working, so. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? Sorry, Dalton.
No, go ahead.
So that paragraph that follows that we've been discussing, is that the right place for this, is under types of elections? Is there any other, this is the best place for it in the document? I found it odd that it was there, to be honest. And if you tell me this is how things flow, because it is after reading many of them, it's commonly there. That was my one note was.
It can be in the terms of the elected officials, if you want.
So again, it's nothing
There's-
huge. Just to me, it seemed out of place.
And this is actually the way it looks in the Erie Charter, is a separate paragraph, unnumbered, which, I don't know, from a formatting perspective, I think is weird, but I didn't change it. I just left it like that. So.
I got some feedback on, I think this is number 2. We talked about this last time, where any town election may be called by resolution of, is this where it's discussing people who have resigned?
That's later down.
No,
Is that
that's
later
in,
down? Okay,
that's in
yeah.
Article 3.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We're still on paragraph 1, right?
You're still what?
We're still on paragraph 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still in Article 2, yeah.
2.02.1, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, one over here.
So I figured the even versus odd number would be a discussion, but maybe not. Maybe we all agree even.
Just been doing even. I think everyone's wanted to get the elections coordinated with the major elections within the.
Turnout's higher.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the way I feel. I just thought it was interesting because the handbook was saying more and more we're going odd, but then it feels like some other stuff I was reading said it's coming back more to even just because of turnout. And some articles I was reading said it's significantly more turnout when the national elections are going on.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yes.
In midterms.
Yeah, it's a I don't know, it's a weird philosophical choice, because some communities are like, we want to be all by ourselves, and our tax questions all by themselves, and not with a bazillion tax questions or something like that. So I don't know what the right answer is on that, but yeah, there was definitely a lot of movement towards odd, and that's true. I'm seeing more even. Yeah.
So from your formatting point, should you just make that part of 1, just remove the space there?
I'd actually offer that it should be its own like a number 2.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
That's
2 and
fine,
then
too.
change 2 to 3.
I would agree.
That's fine, yeah.
Fine.
Oh, fix the formatting later.
Small,
Should we,
yeah.
along those lines, I actually disagree, because if we're going to get into the formatting side of it, because it's someone else's, it's not a type of election, it's a result of a type of election. The 2 elections are regular elections and special elections.
Right, which is, yeah, I mean, you could put it after everything. You could put it in the term section, like just not in this section at all. And we can talk about that, if you want to talk about that.
I agree, though, from a flow standpoint, it's just this awkward statement in the middle of that. So my preference would be to, again, it's not a type of election, it's a result.
Or maybe it's a 2.04 or 2.05.
Right. It's
a-
its own-
It's a timing. It's maybe its own subject.
Sub-bullet.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't we leave it here for now? And when we get into 3, maybe we can find a better spot for
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
And should we potentially, just kind of on the subject of just detailing specific numbers, there are a couple of other instances in this document where there are kind of sections that don't have numbers. Would we want it to just be kind of consistent moving forward, where if it is kind of like a floating text, it does have a number beside it?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So we can kind of just continue that moving forward.
Okay.
I think that'll help as we get
Yeah.
through it too. And if we do want to note, see page
Yep.
26.
People don't want to come to these meetings. Drive them here. Keep talking about format.
So a small thing here, but just as I was comparing, I noticed that the Eagle one has not less than 30 days in advance. So didn't know if anyone had any experience with that, 45 versus 30 days notice.
So I don't know that it matters that much, because what's really going to dictate the day of the election is the process for getting ballots and the printing and all that kind of stuff. And so even if it's not less than 30, it's not like the election's going to happen in 30 days, because they won't be able to print ballots that quickly. The 45 is about the time frame it takes to get ballots ready and going.
Okay.
So from a public perspective, I think, if they were to call a special election, 45, it's going to be in 45 days. The public understands that, where it's like, oh, we're going to like it now, but it's going to be like, 60 days because we have ballots and stuff. So I think that's probably where
Doesn't
the
really
45
matter.
days
Okay.
is the ballot printing process, but I'm guessing, so.
Any other details in any of these?
Well,
And I will fix that formatting issue,
Yeah.
sorry.
And then this section here about campaign finance, I feel like that can be covered in like an ethics code. It seems like it's part of that. That's covered later.
So I can give you probably the reason why it's in here.
Okay.
It's because it's election only related. It's not as broad as like your other code of ethics issues. And of course, now the state will not handle local finance, campaign finance issues. So the town will have to adopt, and if that doesn't already have provisions, it will have to adopt those, so.
Can you follow me? So that as written, or if we go home rule, then the state automatically stops doing anything, or?
The state does not do local campaign finance at all. As a home rule,
Right.
so I think actually I did look at the code, and it does have campaign finance provisions, so how to accept complaints, but it adopts the state rules because you're statutory right now, so.
Right.
But home rules can adopt like their own rules, their own process, everything, like all the meat of the statute and the regulations from the Secretary of State. Superior now just refers to the state rules and the state law. And that's frankly, a lot of home rules do the same thing, because it's hard to create your own campaign finance
Right.
scheme, so.
So,
yeah.
so should this link,
You'd have to, if this was not in there, you would have to do, it would be a requirement anyway. It's an unnecessary provision, if you really want to know.
Right. So this language says that we're going to adopt an ordinance, but it doesn't say what happens until we adopt an ordinance.
That's true, it doesn't, but you have an ordinance currently.
Okay.
So chances are that ordinance, I mean, it's up to the board, town council, if you go home rule, to change that ordinance and make it more robust if they want, but
But
right
the
now.
ordinance right now follows the 40 or 1.45.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I guess it's an ordinance issue more than anything else does. So.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Okay, on to Article 3.
All right. So this is a mixture of re-review and new review. This is your most jumbled article today, I think, probably, so.
Any questions, town council and mayor?
I had a question about 3.015. It says valid signatures. Do we need to define what a valid signature means, or is that done on the petition? I mean, I know what that's getting at is registered voter, all those kind of, or resident, registered voter, but does the charter need to define that further, or are we good with?
So I'll tell you, as written, it's going to default to state law, and state law explains what a valid signature is on a
Okay.
petition, so it can be left as is.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that then.
Can we go back up to 2? So it has been brought to my attention about not ranked choice voting, but
Ryan, do you want to turn your mic on?
oh, I thought it was. Not ranked choice voting, but as the proportional voting taught by the gentleman earlier and some others. Is this article in general where we would have that discussion, or is it somewhere else?
No, it'd be that.
It'd be here. So my understanding, and I don't know if this would be a separate thing, a bullet point or what, but the proportional voting as it's described to me is similar in ranked choice, but more for a body of members, such as a council. And the idea here is on the ballot, you'd have, let's say there's, I'm probably going to mess up the recitation of how it was described to me, but you'll have a grid of candidates, and the voters would vote their first choice, their second choice, their third choice of who they wanted to represent the town. And if there was 4 positions opened, let's say, each candidate would need to, any one person could get on the board with just 21%. And that's a factor of how many slots are open, right? If even you are familiar with the system, please jump in. I'm sure I'm butchering it. So what I like about that is, let's say one member of council was to get 21, but they had many more votes for them. Those votes, those extra votes would go to the next person naturally in the second choice, and then you fill out the representation proportionally throughout the process. So I like that. I think that's the town itself has tried that recently with actually RCP, ranked choice voting, for filling the vacancies. And I just want to bring up as a point of discussion for this group, and I think it's in lieu of districts and wards, I think it's a nice balanced way to get proportional voting, as its name suggests, throughout the town without the structure of a ward. So I'm curious what people think. There is, I will say, a cost to it. My understanding is that the County of Boulder spends $70,000 per year if they use it. And if Superior wanted to use it for their election, they pay a percentage of that fee that Boulder would use. Let's say Boulder used it too. It's divvied up amongst the population. So there'd be a small fee associated with it, but it sounds like not a lot to me. But yeah, go ahead, Mike, say please.
The question I have, because the reading that I've done on this is all tied into wards, and my main question is, how does this apply for at-large elections? And then the speaker that we heard tonight said that there were 81 representatives on the town council. That seems like a lot, and obviously Superior is probably nowhere as large as Helsinki, but if we had 37 people on the town council, that I don't know how you get anything done. So I'm really curious to see, how does this work at at-large elections as opposed to wards?
Please, go ahead.
I mean, my understanding, and mostly talking to Celeste on this, because she tried at length, my concern is it's very complicated for the population to understand in general, right? But if there's enough first place votes for someone, once all those first place votes secure that position for a person, and the 21% you gave said for 4 people, so we pick the number of people that are going to be on the council, that gets fixed. His example is just saying you can use it for lots of different stuff, okay? So once that first person gets satisfied with the number of first choice votes, then anyone else who has still voted for that, or then the number of second place votes goes to a relative proportion of those that are remaining. I'm not saying it quite right, but it's saying that each person gets so if you had more, if the first person gets more than the required, then a fraction of each one of those votes goes down to their second person choice. And so this way you're getting, in theory, a better representation of what everyone wanted for the whole council at large, as opposed to effectively after the minimum number gets done, then the rest of those first place votes are thrown away. Some would say, well, they don't really represent because that person would have gotten elected without my vote, so I would have picked person Y instead of person X had I known that, and therefore my vote doesn't count anymore, and is sort of the feeling for why it's proportional that way. I think that's kind of my interpretation of it. And yeah.
So I'm not getting how if you've got 3 spots on the board,
right?
How is this concept better than the top 3 vote getters getting those 3 seats?
I think it may have to do if one was way out of whack with it, like if one of them had 80% of the votes and then the others didn't, then once you get to a certain level on there, then the second choice, the votes actually go to the second choice.
Right.
That's sort of how I understand it. I know it's not correct, and I don't know that we've ever had elections like that where one person has been so far ahead of everyone else that maybe I'm wrong, but
and I don't think it just has to be a way ahead. I think it's by being proportional, it's trying to say that based on the number, we all get a number of votes. We all can vote for people in terms of 1, 2, and 3, because we each get 3 votes or whatever, right? For if it's 3 numbers. I think it's trying to weight those votes relative to people actually getting elected, so that if one, it goes back to the whole concept that says if after a certain number, right, that person's on the board, it doesn't matter, right? There's a percentage of the electorate that could vote, or then a percentage of the votes that are going to come in, and after that certain percentage, that's going to get done. Then the question is, should the second choice of those people come into play over just being thrown away as an additional vote getter, so someone has, a disproportionately larger number of votes than the other one. This is my problem with it, is it's just so freaking confusion. I just don't know how anyone's gonna.
Well, this is where I'm wondering, is it possible, or would it be in individuals' interest to potentially have a presentation perhaps about this subject?
I'm glad you said that. I was hoping maybe we could table it.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get an expert to come present. Because we're just kind of...
Would individuals want that to kind of continue this conversation, table this for right now, have a presentation from individuals with that, or is that not what individuals would like?
I'm all for having a presentation and understanding more, but the fact that we'd have to have a presentation and research a lot, just this committee alone, like you said in the beginning, the rest of the community is not going to have that luxury. And I think that it's worked the way it has been, and I think it's fine. And I think we're going to create some confusion.
Yeah, I agree. We've talked about this now for like 15 minutes, and I'm still as confused as minute 1. So we can have more discussion on it, but if we want, people to understand and participate in elections, I think
here's another angle, right?
Simple.
What happens when in 2 years someone has the next new way that's supposed to be fair and equal? Now we've called this out in the charter, and to change it, now it has to be a charter amendment. Could this be set by ordinance?
That's what I was just going to ask, right?
Yeah. It could.
So you could say that, it's elected at large unless...
elected at large is by elected at large. How they get elected.
Or elected by ordinance.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that a fair way to say
That could be done by ordinance, but the at-large is at-large. I think we said we're not going to do wards. We already discussed that, not districts or whatever else like that, so.
Does the language right now at large allow at a future date the board the council through ordinance to change the matter of voting. So that's a topic that might not need to be explicitly defined in this charter. And the town council, maybe in the future, has a method of counting the votes that they can adopt.
I think if you want to give them the ability to change the method of counting votes, it might be wise to grant them that authority here in a very vague, because it's going to default to how votes are counted now, right? And how the election act counts votes. But I think they have that inherent authority as a home rule. But if you want to call it out as, hey, you have this authority, we're granting you this authority. If you want to do it by ordinance, I think you can do that. If that's
Between now and the next meeting, could you come up with that language and share it with us?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think a lot of those methods are already approved by the state if they were to be enacted, that they could be used. By ordinance or not is a different question.
Yeah, and I'll just be honest, like, I don't know of any municipality in Colorado that does proportional voting like you're describing, so you'd be the first on that. And I think it might warrant a conversation with the county a little bit and the clerk. Because if that clerk is like, I don't want to do coordinated elections with you anymore, your cost of your elections are just gonna skyrocket. So, okay.
And I'll just say, I think that's, for me, why a presentation from town staff would be helpful to understand total picture of what we're talking about here.
Okay, I'll bring it up with Martin. Okay.
And it doesn't have to be at the next meeting, but at some point in the next couple of months, because I know town staff is busy with.
And what exactly, like, do you want town staff to be here to kind of walk you through what the proportional voting might look like for them? Or what exactly are you looking for? Just so I can relay it to him.
At least for me, I'm trying to understand what are the implications that you alluded to around potential proportional voting and off-cycle elections and all this. I mean,
okay.
I know it might not be feasible or possible, but if town staff are able to get like a cost estimate on what this might be, I'm sure that might be helpful too.
And a simulation of how this would actually, because for me, I need to see how it works to be able to understand where my questions would then come from.
Okay.
Or again, would it just be better, I don't want to use the word punt, but potentially just leave it where the town council, we stated kind of specifically, the town council has the authority to count the matter of votes, how it chooses.
Yeah.
See that after.
We're giving them flexibility. I think that's good.
Let's go back to the language Catherine's going to draft. I think that makes sense.
Okay. You want me to still talk to Martin or?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, I'll delete that. I wrote that whole thing.
So the only thing I will say, I assume everybody got some sort of email or something from Celeste, right? Right. So she had a lot of links in there, and I don't know if I think one of them was, and I haven't found it yet, was supposed to actually show the counting of some of the stuff from Cambridge, Mass, or somewhere else like that to show how it actually got done. Because I was having the same problem with the other things. I need to get a spreadsheet to see how these things are going to all lined up, right? Which is what scares me the most for the public at large to say this is good or bad. But the simplest method, though, the simplest message for them is you're voting for your first, second, and third choices. That's the simplest message. And
well, if you have two similar candidates, I think it helps to. Boulder had this problem, they had this issue come up where Bob Yates was leading in Boulder, and they had ranked choice voting where the second candidate, well, it's not quite the same because it's ranked choice, but like suddenly the person who got in the mayor seat won because their votes got pushed up from the third choice, I think. And I'm, again, butchering it, but Um,
Well, that's again.
That's the
is-
point. That's
might
the
have-
representation
Yeah,
piece that they're looking
yeah.
for.
Yeah.
And I'm
That's
guessing
why they're doing it.
that was probably upsetting to some people, but
Well, that's again
Yeah.
like an item, should we just allow that the town council can make this decision? Do we want to be in a position as a home rule commission to dictate what specific vote counting method is done? Or do we want to give that kind of to the newly formed town council if they want to have elaborate
Give it to
discussion?
the town council, because if we were on the town council, I would think that we would reach out to the public and get their input and do some educational pieces on it and make sure that everybody was comfortable with it or understood it. So I don't know if we have the time and the bandwidth to do that between now and May.
Yeah, I agree. I think leave it general, leave the options open, and, yeah, but not tie ourselves to, any particular thing, because as somebody pointed out, what's the next thing? And it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could see us looking at is if we had the time to truly understand it, which is gonna be the rat hole that we're in, then we might say that this is something that truly does represent the people better than just doing the way we've been doing it, right? The problem I see right now is we have 4 more months.
Yeah,
to
we
figure
only
this
have
out,
so
and I
much
don't know that
time.
We can truly internalize what the benefits are, because we can't even define the method.
Well, and especially enough to be able to sell the population on a pretty big change, quite frankly.
I mean, I think the point you brought up about the vote switching in Boulder because of ranked choice voting is the point of where some of these proportional voting methods or proportional counting methods come in. Because it's supposedly better representation.
Yep.
So maybe we just keep the language, you'll be able to devise something to,
I'll put something in for next time, yeah.
okay, great. We can continue from here. Any kind of additional questions, comments on any of these successive items?
Second read is gonna get us in trouble.
Am I moving too fast for you, Ryan? I can see that you're reading from the screen. And I'm like, look over it, I'm like, okay.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have,
No comments on the whole page.
yeah, I didn't. Like,
We're just gonna clean up some of the things like in the mayor section where there's not a number behind it, right? Right.
yeah, so we'll, like right
Oh, right
there.
here?
Yeah. I think
Yeah, so we can, so this is obviously got the colon here, so, we can make this one and make this ABC.
I think that would probably be a bit cleaner personally.
Okay. I'm just gonna,
Everything needs a reference.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a stickler for kind of consistency throughout the document.
oh, that's not where I wanted to go. Oh, of course it wants to do that. You have to watch me try to reformat the document.
Oh.
Okay, that's good enough. I'll remember
Sorry,
that.
not to
Yeah.
bring up a sore point. Anyone have second thoughts or talk to anyone about nomination requirements? Specifically felonies.
are those in line with how it's currently done?
No, it's different than how it's currently done. We're raising the standard. Right now, it's like 10 signatures. This is
Okay.
increasing it.
And it's 10 for any position, so
Yeah.
it doesn't differentiate either.
Yeah, I think what we said was this didn't seem burdensome.
Okay.
Ryan, did you have additional thoughts?
No, I look at 50 now and I'm like, sheesh.
But if you're running for mayor,
But the only question is, back to why we're not even having wards and districts, will someone be prevented to even try? I guess they're going to be motivated if they're mayor, but I don't know.
I mean, I know I raised that point last time. Was that too high of a figure? But kind of thinking about it a bit more, if you're running for mayor, meeting 50 residents who want to support you, yeah.
It sounds
There's a
like
strong
right now.
possibility
Yeah.
that you are already elected and you're probably the
We had to get 25.
Yeah.
So.
mayor
Yeah,
pro
I think-
tem and you're waiting,
Yeah, if you're running for mayor, you can attend the Chili Fest.
Fair enough.
Any items here?
Oh, did we go by, oh no, we haven't got to meetings. Okay.
We're still in the sections you saw last time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Qualifications.
Can we pause on qualifications?
Yep.
Anyone else have any outside discussions since we last talked?
Well, this was actually, it's an incredibly minor, like, grammatical point, and I just started noticing it in here. The capitalization of board and commission members, should we make it clear that if we're capitalizing board or commission, it is specifically discussing, or the town council, it's specifically talking about our town council, and if it's lowercase, it's council more broadly. It was, I think, 3.04. I'd noticed it.
It's in number 2.
Yeah. Should we just like have kind of a rule? Or, yeah, it was right there, no person who is an employee of the town or town. Yeah, town board, capital, or commission capital members, should those words be capitalized, or is it all right?
No, I think that's actually grammatically correct the way it
Okay.
is now. With the A in front of town means, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I was curious about point 2 that we struck completely. Does anyone have any other further discussions? I've actually heard some split differences on this. Some people,
Say again?
I heard some, in talking to folks in the community, a difference of opinion. It's about 50-50. If ineligible because of felony should be on there.
So,
Some people said, yeah, it's rational. I understand felony definitions change and we don't want to, that should come out through the election process itself. And some people were saying, no way do I want a felon on the town council. So I bring it up as, I don't know if I lean one way or the other, but I am pointing out it was 50-50.
I woke up the next morning after our meeting feeling really good that we did strike this out, just because of events in the national news and, actions that the Colorado Supreme Court took recently and how controversial that is and how they probably won't fly in the, with the Supreme Court, and that it's probably better overall just to let voters decide.
Agree.
I had a, maybe related to this question, B 3.041, B and D seemed duplicative. Is there a reason to have D?
So B is more, so if you're a registered elector in the town of Superior, you qualify under D. So you could delete D and still be fine.
That was my question, is it seemed to be duplicative?
Just on the felony one, I'm happy leaving it out. So just to answer your question, so you can go ahead and nod on that one.
I'm also fine leaving it out.
Yeah, I'm fine leaving it out. As far as like kind of the redundancy with B and D, would anyone be opposed kind of just striking D just kind of for brevity purposes?
I was wondering, the reason I brought this up, partly it was the redundancy, but I was wondering if there was something in D that addressed, like if you're a felon, you can't, vote, but that's if you're in, generally if you're in prison, but when you get out of prison, so it's, that was what I thought it might cover, but I don't think that.
You could be D without being D.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so if we're good on that or not D then?
Yeah, I'd remove D because you obviously want the broader elector in the town of Superior.
So,
Excuse me.
2, I didn't catch this before. So So it says no person is an employee of the town or a town board or commission member may serve on the town board. So like, are you taking like planning commission member or something like that? Because,
Could not be on the town
when I
council.
was on the board,
Serve on
At the same time.
when I was on the board, we always had 2 board members on the planning commission.
At the same
At
time?
the same time.
Really?
That's
They
not,
were a liaison at a certain.
Well, a liaison.
Well, they were also.
Are they voting
they were-
members of the planning commission?
I'm trying to recollect.
Okay.
It's 25 years ago now.
I wouldn't be surprised if
I
the answer to
remember
that
there-
question was yes.
I thought we could,
'Cause that's
or I
the-
thought they couldn't be.
It's a very poor practice. We would strongly recommend not doing that now because they've heard
Went from one to
information in
Right,
another
'cause it's a
hearing.
public
They've had
hearing.
ex parte communications because they sat through the planning commission meeting. So, yeah, it's not favored anymore, but it used to be incredibly common. So I'm not surprised to hear that. So can we real quick, D is out.
Yes.
Just sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
quite get the, okay. Okay.
Then I'm
Sorry.
happy leaving it. That's,
No.
I'm old now.
Okay.
Where are we at now?
Just for clarity's sake, for number 2, where it says no person whose employee, town or board may also serve on the town council simultaneously. I mean, do we want to be that explicit? And if we don't need to, that's fine.
I don't think we need
Okay,
to be,
that's
but if
fine.
it makes you more comfortable, we certainly can. I don't think it's fine either way.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm fine the way it is.
I'm sure someone could make hay out of that issue, but hopefully they don't live here, so.
Any kind of general thoughts here before town council meetings?
So this is, I think, the first time you're seeing
Yes.
Yeah.
town council meetings, so.
I do have on town council meetings.
Guys,
Go ahead.
can I just have one, because this is going to be like question of you throughout a lot of these is.
Okay.
What's different than what we're doing today, right? And how some of this is written. So I hate to throw that as a broad question, but I think that's going to be one of the things that sits in my mind as reading through this. How is this exactly different than what we're doing today or not different than what we're doing today? So.
That is not,
It's very different than what is currently written out here. It says so this is what we have. Regular meetings of the Board of Trustees shall be held on the 2nd and 4th Mondays of each month. So it's very precise. I don't know if we have to be that precise.
not in your charter,
I
yeah.
like what URE has done. And they said the council, and this is on page 13 of their charter. The town council shall hold at least 2 regular meetings a month with the date, time, and manner of notice to be established by ordinance. So we're saying that it has to be 2.
Oh, no, that's in URA's.
You must be, I don't see that in here.
No, that's.
No, he's referencing
No,
another
it's-
charter.
We don't have the Tuesday, Thursday.
I'm looking at, so the one in here that's currently written, it just says, "The town council shall meet regularly at least once each month unless increased by ordinance at a day, hour, or place fixed." I'm just saying that we put in here that it's 2 times a month.
But Chris, we don't always do 2 times.
Yeah.
We had,
Not required.
we had a couple of times where we did not meet twice a month, so I don't think we need to.
at least once a month.
I think
so.
at least once.
Well, it
Covered.
does, I think it says in here, it addresses that. So it's 2 times, and it gives us specific days.
You're talking about our
Yeah.
current ordinance?
So
Yeah, no, the way that
Yeah.
currently reads it in the municipal code.
Right, so the town council can keep that ordinance in place even when the charter's adopted.
Okay.
Okay.
This just basically says, this gives like the bare minimum,
And again, thinking 50 years from now, maybe the town council wants to meet 4 times a month because that's what, and they'll change the ordinance. But I think at least once a month covers
Yep.
all of that.
Okay.
So, question I had on this section, then tied back to, so I have a couple scribbled notes here about where the agenda gets set for and published prior to the meetings. Does that get covered somewhere else, or is that only done by ordinance or whatever? Because it says you have certain topics that we're gonna cover or not cover. How does that get covered, where the agenda has to get placed and noticed?
Well, that's covered by the open meetings law, so posting of the agenda. So a couple of things. So the open meetings law requires any municipality, any local government to, in January, they have to pass a resolution that says where the posting places for all public notices will be, including agendas.
Okay.
And then the open meetings law requires a certain timing and description of that document that actually gets posted. So it's called full and timely notice.
I think, doesn't the code say it has to be posted outside on the glass case?
That's how our current ordinances
Yes.
are, right?
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure in here whether it gets,
Yeah.
by definition.
I would leave that as an ordinance issue and not a charter issue.
Okay. And then it also says something about being open to the public. I think it's one or two, yeah. Kind of going back and forth, my mind was broadcasting of the meetings and things like that. Obviously, technology is going to change, keeping it timeless, but I guess maybe the open to the public covers, whether it's, we do it by practice, have the videos broadcast and stuff like that now, but wasn't sure whether we want to be more explicit or not, but
Yeah, and
probably covers it too.
I think we saw that during the pandemic a lot. So the board wasn't sitting together and the public certainly wasn't here. And I think people generally got comfortable with that being still open to the public. The public could come and listen. That's what's required.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm always hesitant to like codify specific technology because as
exactly.
soon as we do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Any other additional questions, comments on here? Okay. Going to vote in.
I just had a question on number 4, and where it says, if a council member or the mayor refuses to vote without being excused, the town clerk shall consider the refusal as an affirmative vote.
Yes, the code says negative.
And I would say, at minimum, it should be a no vote, but I'd say don't count it at all.
Well, if you're not excused, they have to count something if you're there.
So I can tell you why it's in there and you can decide if you like that or not. So what sometimes happens, and I don't know if this has happened here, you have someone who says, well, I just, I have a conflict, or they're real vague about, it's a controversial issue, they don't want to take a stand. And so what this forces them is to, one, you actually have to have a conflict of interest not to vote and be excused. And then you actually have to vote. And I think the affirmative negative is a judgment call, a policy call. But that's why something like that is in there.
The issue I have with it is, what if somebody just doesn't know what they're voting on, if they're not educated enough on it? Maybe it's a new board member, or maybe it hasn't been clearly explained and they don't want to take a position on it.
Can they request to postpone a vote?
They could.
In that case?
But I just hate to have this written in here that it says that if they decide not to vote, for whatever reason, that it's counted as a yes vote. To me, that's.
If they know that a vote is going to take place that night, though, then shouldn't they just be prepared?
They should, but what if it's a new board member, and again, they don't have the history, they don't have the knowledge? I'm just saying that, at minimum, I'd rather see that change to a no vote instead of an affirmative vote.
But I disagree on that. I think the word excused, to me, should that be recused? I mean, because I was questioning about excuse, who is the excuser? I mean, if you have a conflict of interest, you recuse yourself,
And they're being excused from the vote.
But then, and then you're not having to vote, but so the excuse part was confusing to me.
Eagle calls this out a little bit more specifically. Eagle's charter, they call it out, what exactly do they say? They say, excuse from voting due to a conflict of interest as provided in section 3.06 below. So they give actually more detail as to the definition of being excused. Something to consider.
Okay.
I think you're right. I think it implies that there's some kind of council decision being made to say, yes, we think you have a conflict, you're excused. That probably doesn't happen all that often. But sometimes, a council member will say, I think I might have a conflict, let me tell you about it. And the governing body will ultimately be like, no, I think you're fine, or no, you gotta go. So that may be reflective of why that verb is being used.
Okay.
I think it covers that as well as people trying to get out of having to make a decision or make a vote for some reason, one way or another, right? It's sort of like you can't make up a conflict of interest just because you don't want to take a stand on something necessarily. You got to make a vote. And I think whether you put positive or negative is really just so that there's something determinate, so people can't willy-nilly decide when they don't want to do something.
Well, affirmative raises the stakes.
Yeah, doesn't
That's
it?
true.
That's what she's saying.
Yeah, right.
I also would propose a reordering of 1 through 4 because to me, they seem completely out of order. So I would go 3, 4, 2, 1. I'd go reverse. I mean, well, not exactly reverse, but 3, 4, 2, 1. Because 3 is like, okay, a normal resolution vote. Okay, to me, that's all right. That's the normal one. And then the number 4 is kind of comes next in my mind. And then you go into these emergency, and the 2 emergencies are not, those are kind of the exceptions rather than the rule. So to me, those should be after kind of the normal voting cadence. The other thing I found interesting was I read the whole book on municipalities. I was on an airplane ride and I read the whole book, and it said that there's no statute that exists that requires members to vote. So I found that interesting, that there's no statute requiring a vote. And so I thought, in my notes to myself was number 4 is an important, I think it is important to have this section because I recall a time on the board where a board member just didn't want to vote. And, whether they were unprepared or weren't, I don't know what the issue was, but I was frustrated because that's what you're elected to do. You're elected to show up here and vote. And if you don't want to vote, don't be here. So I think that this, recused is one thing, but if you're not recused, you need to vote.
So to close that issue, right? I think it definitely needs to be in there. I agree with you on that one. Excused, recused. To me, one, you recuse yourself, but then everyone else, to me, the rest of the board is excusing you from voting because they believe you have a valid point for that. So I don't know whether it needs to be explicit without being excused by the other members of the council. Is that what we're saying? Is that what's being put in here or not? But I think there's a little clarification that needs to be made along those lines, but I definitely think it needs to be in there.
I think it can stay in there. I just had a problem with if they didn't vote, that it was automatically a yes vote.
Yeah, so, and I think you pointed this out. So there is a provision in the Code of Ethics in Superior's Code now, right? That's very similar to this. And it's a negative vote, so it's the opposite. So I don't know if that matters or.
It matters to me, and that makes sense to me, is that if they don't vote, then if you have to record it as a vote, then it'd be automatically a negative vote.
So what are,
There's 2 issues on the table, right?
yeah.
So the first issue is it just without being excused, or is more clarification needed on that aspect?
I personally am of the belief, I think you get enough with the language as far as excused or recusal. I don't know if we need to specify excused by the board specifically, because then you can start.
I wouldn't limit it that way.
Yeah.
I would leave it open for that moment for the board to work together and sort that out.
And then I guess the next item then is an affirmative or a negative vote?
I kind of think affirmative. It's simply because when a board takes action on an ordinance, it's usually to change something. And by not voting and just being mum on it, you're effectively saying no change. By forcing them to vote, you have to you have to have some stake in the game to say, it's going to be a yes, whether you like it or not, unless it's a no to change, not change.
So I look at it a little bit different way. So I look at it through the lens of, a little bit of maybe the ethics or other way of why someone would recuse themselves. So, and one thought going through my head goes back to if you have a conflict of interest with a development going through and you just recuse yourself and it goes forward and your vote is causes a for it, then effectively you're achieving the whole thing that you want to have anyways, right? So to me,
That's not my,
hold on,
that's
I
not
don't
my
think-
understanding of what we're talking about. If
No.
a board member has recused themselves because of a conflict of
don't
interest.
Then they don't vote at all.
It's if a board member or council member
Yeah.
is making a decision not to vote on the
At
issue
all.
for whatever
okay,
reason,
that's right. I'm
it's.
sorry.
They just sit there and go like this, or they're not.
Just real quick, in your guys' experience, how often did this happen?
I don't recall, I don't,
There
was
was
that
a-
on the, when I
a
was on the board, because I don't
big-
recall.
Not that it doesn't matter, and we should
I
have
don't
good
think-
language.
I
I'm
don't
just
think you're-
curious if this is a.
It's rare, so it's rare.
But that could
I-
have
I lean
major
more in the affirmative. I lean more in the affirmative
I apologize,
camp.
I'm mixing my terms.
It's okay.
But
I never saw it in my years.
Yeah, I think maybe I can count on one hand. I mean, one time that I can remember, may have happened other times, but so it's a rare occurrence, which is good. But I do think that it would make more sense to have it be an affirmative vote if it happened.
If I were put in that position, I would definitely vote no. Just to, hopefully to scuttle it, and then it has to come back, another time.
Yeah.
So I would definitely vote, if I wasn't sure on something, I'd just vote no and say, I just don't know enough information.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, I would rather see it. Anyway, go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I was just going to say, if it's in the code of ethics, I'd like them to match. So I'm going to lean towards the negative.
Yeah, because that's what's currently there. Okay.
But the charter, this new charter is going to take precedence
And
over
change
anything
it.
that's out there, and then the
That will be
ordinances
changed.
have to get changed to adjust for it. So
Or
I'm just-
removed entirely because it's
we
in
don't
the
have to be
charter.
consistent with the code of, right?
Yeah.
Right, so it's what do we think? So I like the positive as, in terms of the stakes are a lot higher if you kind of try to back out. So you don't want to vote for it, then you know what, it's gonna be a positive vote anyways.
What I actually am curious about is the word "if present." So, present on the roll call until the meeting's adjourned, is this what I assume that means?
Yeah, if you're,
Oh, so if they're not present, they don't have to vote?
if they're not
What it says.
present.
We have had
So
issues,
you can just miss the meeting?
early departures.
I
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
feeling it's just like a drafting issue to make sure that like present applies to both these groups of people, the council members and the mayor. Like it's a little clunky. It's a little weird, but I think that's probably like,
That was a major.
But, so could someone just, if they don't want to vote on something, just not show up to the meeting?
absolutely.
Sure.
Oh, so they can still have a way to do that, I
Yeah.
guess.
Which happens.
But it's typically one piece of the meeting. I mean, they're just like one topic of many. I mean, there's many things you're acting on at any given meeting, and if it's just one little thing or one big thing.
I guess I'm asking for the present question. Do you want to clarify that it means if you're present at roll call, these rules apply until the adjournment of the meeting?
You have to be excused if you're leaving the meeting early, is what your
Yeah.
excuse piece comes in. So normally if you have to leave the meeting.
But back to Clint's point, what's excuse mean? By whom?
Well, but I don't think it's a roll call thing either. Because someone could arrive, like, let's say the agenda item is late and they were late to the meeting. I don't know that you want a roll call connection. Because if they're present for the item, then they're like, well, now I don't want to vote on it for some reason. You don't want to be like, well, I wasn't here for a roll call. I don't have to vote on this anymore. I don't think you want that kind of specific.
Fair enough. I'm just trying to clarify what it means.
I mean,
because
it means they're present, they're physically present or on Zoom for the vote.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we had cases where people had to leave. Maybe they had to catch an airplane, or they just decided they were done and left. I mean, so there's those issues that can happen as well.
And at that point, they're not present for the vote.
They're not present, so then
But that was the fundamental problem was, if I don't recall the one you're talking about, someone left the meeting without being excused, and then the question is where is the vote coming, is there a vote?
Was it, in that case, was it counted as negative?
no, there's no vote.
Yeah,
There was
It didn't count as anything.
Didn't count as anything,
There to
because
vote.
So there was just no vote that night?
The majority
Yeah.
Oh,
vote.
Oh,
No,
okay.
there was in that particular case.
I don't think a situation where someone like leaves the meeting necessarily, I mean, it says refuses to vote,
Refuses, that
indicates they're
implies
still
you're there.
present.
Yeah, right.
So if they just like, they're like, oh, that thing's coming up on the agenda, I'm gonna pretend like I need to leave, then this doesn't apply to them.
Oh, I think it does. I think that's what the point is that, I think the point is whether you want it to apply to them, because that's what the excuse comes from. If you leave a meeting earlier, you're being excused to leave the meeting because you were present.
Well,
No, I think the excuse is related to the conflict of interest in the first sentence.
I think that's excused because you're.
Due to a conflict of
Due to a
interest.
conflict of interest, i.e. recused.
Okay.
So let's-
Then how does this address your scenario that came up then? So now I'm confused then.
I guess it wouldn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. It doesn't have anything to do with that.
Then I'm, okay.
I honestly don't
thought you
know
brought that
of
up
any
as-
time that this has happened. I mean, but you're saying it did, or are you
I'm-
referring to that one?
No. There was it was something like pulled off the consent agenda, and it was, some relatively benign topic, but the board member did not want to vote on it, and we just, I don't even remember what maybe we did employ the rule, the ethics rule that was in place. But again, very limited number of times that's happened. So I don't know that we need to beat this to death.
So if this doesn't apply in the scenario that I thought you were referring to, which I think you were thinking the same thing, then, I don't think it really matters either way.
I think I'm leaning towards a negative vote only because that's the most conservative route usually, like
That's what I
it's not, if someone's for whatever reason is not voting, you don't want some major change to go forth,
My rationale with the
yeah.
negative, though, is if you really don't want some change to go forward, why don't you just vote in the negative?
Yeah, get it on record.
Yeah. I think that given the limited amount of time this happens, given that it's already in our code as a negative, I would be fine leaving it with that. I mean, if I was doing this from scratch, I would say do it in the affirmative, but.
We are doing it from scratch. We are doing
We
it from
can't
scratch.
be.
Everyone's gonna realize.
I tend to agree, Claire.
Oh,
We're writing the chart.
I'm saying if the code of ethics did not exist and we're doing it from scratch, but I get what you're saying. The charter is from scratch. It's
I
from
tend to
very
agree with the
scratch.
affirmative part of what you're saying completely. I think what I'm getting hung up on is could someone leave to the bathroom and a vote happens, gets rushed? Could some process, could it be gamed in a way, is what I'm saying.
It could, but I think your fellow board members would say, hold on, let's call for a recess.
Yeah.
You're gaming, I don't think the fellow board members would go for that, and the public certainly would not go for that, especially if it was a controversial thing.
Well, and if
So,
it's the deciding vote, then the ones who are either one way or the other are gonna say, hold on.
Yes.
We're waiting till he comes
Yes.
back.
Yes.
So,
I just wouldn't want some big change to happen just because one person was acting odd one night.
Acting what?
Acting odd one night. Or we had,
but then the way, yeah.
Well, that's, my thought goes back to, then why not just vote in the negative?
but we don't know why they're not voting.
Yeah, I guess if I was forced to, I would say I'd vote no, but I still wouldn't want it to be on the record for voting no on something that after I learned more about it, that I decided to vote yes on it, because it would be on the record. So I don't know, I just, again, like you said, it was a good point, that it's more conservative just to make that as a no vote instead of making it a yes vote. So,
Our first motion to have a vote.
One more thing. Isn't there a concept of voting present where it's not either, but it counts as the negative?
well, there's also abstain,
Abstain, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, abstain.
but what is an abstain? I think an abstain vote actually does count as a yes vote, doesn't it?
I'm not sure there's any, that's procedural, that's parliamentary
Yeah.
procedure. That doesn't really exist in Colorado unless you adopt Robert's rules. And
Oh,
I don't
right.
know, I'm not a parliamentarian. I don't know what Robert's rules say about that. I suspect they addressed it though. But typically it's a yes or no in
Okay.
municipalities in Colorado, so. And you would abstain if you had a conflict. I mean, that's the same
Yeah.
language, right? So.
I was a parliamentarian in middle school, but
I stayed on the express.
Then I turn it over to you.
Again,
Don't
not a hill I'm
remember
going to
that part.
die on for negative vote, but I think affirmative raises the bar.
So make a motion.
I don't think we need to make a motion on that.
If you want to put a vote, anytime anything's controversial, I say make a motion and vote on it. That's the best way you can do it.
You can also leave it and come back to it. This is a section you're reviewing for the first time, so.
Yeah, can we come back to it? 'Cause
I
I'm
think
not
that's-
voting tonight.
I think that's more than okay. How would people generally feel? We kind of leave the section untouched because we will have the second reading for this. We have a lot to still discuss otherwise, and we can sit on it, sleep on it, come back to it.
how about reordering though?
Can I make a suggestion on
Yes.
reordering?
Yes.
Can you, so I see 4 as kind of like an overall standard. So so it's 4, 3, 1, 2. So just switching the first, so 3 would not be first. Maybe that's what you said.
I said 3, 4, 2, 1, but I'm I'm fine with. But I'd be fine with 4, 3,
Okay.
2, 1.
4, 3, 2, 1?
No.
They all have equal weight.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So on to the similar topic.
So, well, and there is a pretty well fleshed out code of conduct and ethics that already exists by ordinance. So I wonder if we need to say shall adopt or just refer to the already in place code of ethics or?
So I think the question you need to ask yourself, if you want that always to be there. If you want it always to be there and you don't want town council to be able to remove all of that out of the code, then you want to keep that shall.
Yeah.
I see. So otherwise they might just be able to dissolve that.
Yeah, they could just, if you just said, may adopt or could adopt or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that shall means it has to be there. Okay.
Can I, I've talked to lots of people about this. One suggestion was include language that every single newly formed council shall essentially review and agree to a code of ethics.
Okay.
Not by ordinance, but by every session, every session that a new board sits together. Meaning it forces a conversation for them to know how they're going to work with each other and what ethics they're going to adopt and how they're going to behave as a team. I also heard when that suggestion was put forth to say, we want to get started. We don't want to have to be forced to do that every single time.
I guess I'm not sure what you're saying. You want each new council to
Review.
draft a new ordinance or either
just
affirming the
review it.
existing code of conduct or?
Something along the lines of affirming, have the discussion when the council is formed, essentially.
Ryan, I want to ask this of the folks who have been elected. Is there a board orientation for new members? And are the code of ethics one of the tools that gets walked through?
I thought that we did discuss this in the first meetings as a new board.
It's definitely in the packet and
Yeah.
definitely, definitely something that's available for review. I mean, I think the oath of office kind of implies that you're going to follow rules and the laws. So, I mean, to me, the oath of office that you're taking is kind of, would cover that. Jeff?
Fair enough.
I don't think we've ever, in my time, I don't think we've discussed it and sat down as part of the board going, this is the code of conduct and code of ethics. I think there's when you talk about a code, I can interpret a couple things, right? A code of conduct being on the board, and we'd have the team building sessions and things like that, where we'd talk about how are we going to accomplish that. We would do a meeting like that every year, right? Sort of the goals and objectives for the following year, and that would cover any sort of conduct piece. The ethics piece to me should be much more long-lasting part of it.
Yeah, agreed.
Not something that would get
I-
revised on a board level.
And I'm not suggesting it gets revised. I think it's kind of like more of a code of conduct. Well, let me ask this question. When does it get decided when the board meetings end? I know that was a point of,
That's actually an ordinance, I believe.
like, it was at 12 at one point and then it became 11. Like, how does that work? Like,
I believe when I was on the board, we had to pass an ordinance that put a time limit and said we
Yes,
could vote to
it's
extend the meeting
ordinance.
by 1 hour. So it's codified because we ran until 3 o'clock a couple times.
oh,
Yes. Yeah, ordinance.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would like to kind of see added here, and I've been surprised not encountering this in a number of other charters or even in the town code, which is why I bring this up, is just a sentence that details that town council, town staff has an avenue for anonymous reporting for any sort of ethical misconduct that they encounter, that shall be part of the code of conduct and ethics moving forward. And that's something that no matter what, because they can obviously change and alter the code for a number of different features, but just highlighting that there is going to be an avenue for anonymous reporting of wrongdoing. Doesn't need to like define like you have this phone number, you have this email, just that the code of ethics will have. Yeah.
So right in there is right before enforcement mechanism, maybe.
Specify an enforcement.
Specify
Yeah, just adding some like
reporting,
specification.
confidential
Yeah,
reporting,
some,
confidential
yeah.
reporting mechanism.
So I hate to be the lawyer. The reporting part's fine. It's the confidential anonymous stuff that gets
Okay.
tricky. And I'll tell you why. Under Cora is being reduced and reduced and reduced. So the Colorado Open Records Act, sorry, is being reduced and reduced and reduced. And it's pretty hard to keep complaints confidential anymore. And so I don't want to be making that commitment in a charter that the town may not be able to honor. So, but I think the reporting part,
Yeah,
We're
so
all
what
good.
about even just an enforcement mechanism, including avenues for reporting unethical conduct?
Yeah.
Or,
It's just a separate mechanism.
Yeah.
For reporting mechanism.
I think it would be nice to just specify that, because I've worked in ethics and compliance in the past, and a lot of times individuals are just unaware of this or fear retaliation. And I was surprised, like I didn't even see that in the Superior Code as well, which is why I thought we can
Should be
detail this here.
One other thing I picked up on was Erie expanded the conflict of interest in here. And I don't know that we need to do that, but we could just add another paragraph here that says conflict, shall specify, definition of conflict of interest or whatever. It's already in the code, right? But do we want to call that out since specifically above, you can be excused from voting due to a conflict of interest?
I would think so.
You don't think so?
No, I would think so.
Oh, okay.
Like, so like
Say that
define
again.
conflict of interest.
No, or
right
just
there.
saying that it needs to be in the, not
Oh.
defining it, but saying in this list of things, we also list definition of conflict of interest.
Oh, isn't it the second line? Shall address, I guess address is not as strong. Address.
Yeah, shall
Conflicts
address
of
that.
interest.
Conflicts of interest and behavior.
Oh,
yeah,
it says it right
that.
there. Sorry, I missed that.
Me too.
It's a lot of words.
It's there.
Team effort.
Thank you for that.
The only other question I also had for you in reviewing the code and some of other Colorado law, they use substantial specifically when it comes to like substantial monetary value or gifts or giving. Do you know, should we have some sort of definition of what substantial means? Or is it best to maybe keep that kind of vague? Because the closest kind of definition that I found was in the Code of Ethics determining financial interests. And the financial interest portion for the Superior Code went fairly granular, even down to like percentage ownership stake in a specific business. Is it better to keep the terminology of substantial vague, or should we address that in this section, or kind of just leave it as is?
I would give the town council the flexibility to be as granular as they want
Okay.
to. That isn't That's a pretty granular
Yeah.
provision compared to other ones, which is fine. But I think I'd leave that out of the charter. That'd be my recommendation. So
Okay.
that's what you get when lawyers drop substantial. We love reasonable and substantial. They're like our favorite words.
Any other questions, comments on this? Okay. Compensation.
Now, I did get feedback on this too. It's just one person who's sitting on the board. They didn't want to think about this really as having to write an ordinance to do it. So I haven't read our ordinance. Is it defined currently?
The dollar
With CPI
numbers.
and everything?
No CPI.
$900
Yeah.
It's,
town council and
Yeah.
$1,200 for the mayor, I think.
Yeah, it's hard coded that way, and to
Yes.
change it, it has to be through ordinance.
yeah.
Which is fine.
Right, which
I think
is
it's
fine.
perfect, which is the whole point here.
And then the next elected board takes.
Yeah.
That salary.
You can't
Increase.
vote
You
your
can't
raise
increase
while
your
you're in
own
office.
salary.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
excuse me, stipend.
The feedback was,
Salary.
don't make us do it through ordinance, just do it through definition through CPI. I tend to agree, I kind of think it's through, should be ordinance, but I'm just relaying feedback of what I hear from the community.
I mean, you
Since
can
they're not showing
you
up.
can go a long time without increasing it, right? I mean, it's a minuscule amount anyways. I think it was $100 when I was on the board, $100 a month or something like that. I mean, it's a minuscule amount that people would look at, and yeah, if anything, I would put on here, I would add in here an unsubstantial compensation, just to.
I had a grammatical question on number 1, 3.081. Should it read shall prescribe by ordinance? You've got the word prescribe at the end. That didn't.
Yeah, I think that was written that way in something else, but yeah, let's switch it.
1,700.
Yes, yes. No, I think Ryan, back to your point, I think the ordinance, I mean, I get people not wanting to, that's kind of a hot potato topic that was always kind of lively discussions the 3 or 4 times we went through it, but it's just part of what you got to do.
What happens in those discussions?
Someone complains that you shouldn't get that much money or something like that.
Or they should get
It,
more.
there was, yeah, it was, I mean, I think everybody agreed that they're not getting paid very much, but, they're kind of splitting hairs over little increases that were kind of insignificant, and
also to potentially attract more people, if there's more
but that,
money.
yeah, that was part of the discussion as well, is that, if you want people to perhaps be somewhat compensated for their time, you need to perhaps raise it substantially.
Someone's doing it for the money.
Yeah, still not doing it so much.
And then on number 2, the town council shall neither increase nor decrease the compensation. It just sounds kind of clunky. My rewrite was any change in compensation shall apply following the next regular election. Or I could live with number 2 as it is, but it just,
No, because it can't be the regular election, because even if you're mayor, the next regular election would be, you could still be in term if you're not up for election. So I think this is trying to say that you can't vote your own thing into the election.
good point. Okay. All right, scratch that. And then on number 3, I have one little thing. It shall be paid or reimbursed. Because I could,
I had that question too.
sometimes board members make payments themselves and they're not being paid for it, but they might need to get reimbursed. I don't know.
I think it should be reimbursed, it's not paid, because you shouldn't be paying for anything per se.
I wondered,
If it's
yeah.
not, if it's pay, then it's
Upfront.
and taxes and everything else like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe just reimbursed. Or is there an
Any
issue with
reason
that
for the
word?
word paid versus reimbursed?
No, other than like, if you say reimbursed, then
have to
they're gonna
pay.
have to front the payment.
Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think paid could be either.
I think, okay, because board members do get credit cards now.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, so they're not even, so we could just delete it all because you just use the town credit card. Just
But there might be a situation where you pay for something yourself. You forgot your credit card or whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah. Paid just to me says you're getting paid, you're receiving income. That's what it says to me as opposed to being reimbursed for expenses.
So just to be clear, there's two components. There's a monthly compensation, we'll call it a salary, and then if they have out-of-pocket expenses, they can get reimbursed for those expenses.
Or
That's, yes.
maybe the bona fide expenses are paid, not the council members, or are paid for.
Yeah, those specific items are what is being
Paid for.
covered.
Yeah, number 3
Yeah.
is talking about expenses.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
I think reimbursed applies better there.
Would it be better?
I think it does, but I'll leave
That
that, I'll
just-
leave that to you. If
I
you-
think paid covers
okay,
reimbursement.
then we're-
You're made whole in some way.
Okay.
You've already paid.
Then we're
Yeah,
good.
I'm not worried
Okay.
about that word particularly.
Done.
Tax next time.
All right, so oath of office is starting, I think you did not see that one last time.
No?
No.
I was wondering,
Go ahead.
I was wondering as far as like grammar in the oath of office, would we want to have the charter and the ordinance of Superior kind of together? So just remove that comma from the charter and the ordinances
Yeah,
of the town of Superior.
Because it's the charter of the town of
Yeah.
Superior and the ordinance of the town of Superior.
Yeah.
Why?
And
What's the rationale?
Just because they're together, we're looking at the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Colorado, and then the charter and ordinances of the town of Superior.
I
They're
see. Instead
together.
of the charter of the town of Superior and the ordinance of the
Yeah.
town of Superior. Yeah, okay.
Some of the different charters didn't have the oath in there. Is there I mean, what's the reason, or do you have a good idea
State
of what
law
the reason?
mandates the oath.
Okay,
So there's a default oath under state law.
Okay.
And they recently modified it, so it's like everybody has to use this oath.
unless it's defined differently here.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it a lot different?
No.
Basically just not the charter and the ordinances, right?
Mm-hmm.
No.
All right.
All right. Any other items with Mayor Pro Tem and Acting Mayor?
I would like to ask a question. Is this section 3.10 good where it is? Or would it be something that would make more sense under the mayor at 3.02?
So 3.02.
That's just what came
for
to mind when I
everybody's
was reading
reference.
through it. Because that's where we talk about the mayor. I didn't know if this is one and the same. In my head it is, but you guys can totally argue that.
I agree.
I think that makes
Yeah,
sense.
just moving that up.
Excuse me. So moving it up,
After the mayor.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if the rationale for that location specifically is because this would take place after you're sworn in, because no one votes for a mayor pro tem, and no one votes for, as like a regular citizen, the acting mayor. This is action that the town council does. So I wonder if that's why it's included after the oath of office.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so anyone's thoughts? Keep it as is, move it? I don't have a big preference. I was trying to understand the rationale why that would be there, and that's my thinking why it's there. Because I think the mayor is more like, that's an elected role,
Elected.
defines that. Citizens aren't electing these roles.
Yeah, I think
I'm
that's-
fine with that. We could keep it here, then
Yeah.
scratch what I said, sleep on it.
But then in the same vein, why is special meetings not after meetings
Yeah, that's what I was gonna read.
Yeah.
and
Special
executive
meetings and
sessions?
executive session should be
Yeah.
maybe a different, should be moved to a different section as well.
And, well,
I
this
have
is
that
a-
too.
Yeah, this is a new,
Okay.
we
so-
haven't talked about this section, so
Yeah, this is
a
new.
section.
Mhm.
Okay, so the question is, should special meetings go up,
And executive sessions.
both of these sections go up after the town meeting section, like
Yeah.
3.05, I think that's what it was?
Yeah.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
is that a general yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we on special meetings now?
We
Yeah.
are.
What about changing the request for a special meeting from majority of the entire council to mayor or two councilors?
Sorry?
So changing
So
the
changing it from a
requirements?
majority of the entire council can call a special meeting down to two, which is
Two
what it
and
is
the
now.
Two and the mayor.
Two or the mayor.
It says
Two or the
or.
mayor.
Yeah. And it's nice, especially if you're in the minority and you have the ability to call a special meeting, so.
Or, I don't know, would that result in too many special meetings if it was easier
I
to
don't-
call?
It was never an issue on our board, and there were some trustees that would like to do a lot of special meetings if they had the opportunity to, but they just didn't.
They just didn't.
So I think it was used wisely, but it gives you the flexibility to do it.
It is the way it's in the code now.
Yeah.
The two or the mayor. Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
I don't, does anyone have any other thoughts on changing it to fit kind of the code with two or the mayor?
So what I'm reading here is that, okay, is there a current state statute for calling special meetings?
I don't think so.
Okay. So the ordinance that we have covers what you intend.
How often were special meetings called and on what topics?
It can be any topic. I think that's the point is,
No.
I could call a meeting
That
tomorrow.
could be a lot of
No,
meetings.
I mean, in practice.
In practice, it's not done very much.
It's not because we meet enough as it is, and
Long meetings.
I don't want to meet more than we don't have to, but it's nice to have that ability to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
So the mayor alone can call a special meeting as well.
Which I think that's good.
Yeah. Well, then there's also some, in the emergency powers, they detail
Yeah, yeah.
powers that the mayor
meetings.
have as well.
Right.
And so in that language, you would have to get four, saying majority.
Yeah.
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 But the current code says
Two.
two. I'm fine with keeping it consistent with the current code.
I'm fine with having two.
Okay.
Okay.
So if this was in this, what would? Yeah, okay, never mind, that's fine.
Should we state like at least two council members? Would that be the kind of right terminology?
It says
I don't think
special
the at least
meetings
is needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
of the Board of Trustees may be called by the mayor or two board members of the Board of Trustees for transactions of business.
Okay.
So,
Verbal request means they call into the town clerk and the town clerk calls everyone? How does that work? Does it matter? I guess I don't care. I'm just kind of curious.
They have to say it at their meeting? When they're all in
now we-
person, or?
yeah, how would that work?
How did Marshall Fire work? How did,
Two board members come down at town hall and say, we want to have a special meeting.
Or they get on the phone. Yeah, the
Just call
town clerk and they say, we
Yeah.
want a special meeting. And it can't happen for 24 hours. And the clerk's going to be like, on what? Get all that information
Yeah.
and probably talk to the town manager and figure out logistics and get it noticed. Yeah.
So is the current ordinance only 24 hours as well?
Yeah, that's state law.
Yes, yeah.
That's the only thing Yeah, that could get abused.
It could, but I don't know if it
I
ever
don't,
has.
yeah.
No, no, I don't.
And that's what the town code is currently, and it hasn't been
I know.
abused. Yeah.
Right.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Any other details on special meetings? Okay. Executive sessions. This one, I know I had a specific point on 1D. Specialized detail of security arrangements or investigations, including defenses against terrorism, both domestic and foreign. Do we need the inclusion of defenses against terrorism, both domestic and foreign? I would imagine that
Hopefully
those
not.
kind of, I know, hopefully not. I was wondering, I feel if some sort of act like that happened, that would just generally fall under the parameters of any sort of security arrangements or investigations.
So let me,
Supers. Is that terrorism?
and I think this will maybe, I don't know if it'll inform your question, but, so, most of you know that the Colorado Open Meetings Law details a list of bases for executive session. And these are very similar. There's a couple of them that aren't quite the same, but they're very similar. And then you'll see at the end, there's the catch-all, the Open Meetings Law
Yeah.
catch-all.
Oh, right.
So it is an open question in Colorado, and lawyers will disagree as to whether or not a home rule municipality can alter the basis for an executive session.
Okay.
There's a lot of charters that have a list of the basis that don't match state law. Some like this where it's really, really close. So there's some risk assessment, I think, in there for you all. It's never been litigated. I don't think it will because no one really wants to know the answer. These are so close to the current law. It's almost not even worth mentioning the differences. They're so minor. But I just wanted to point that out to you that that is an open question in Colorado. I think most of the lawyers in our firm take the position that the home rule can modify the basis to go into executive session. But I think the right case where you had a charter with a really wacky executive session basis that pretty much allowed the governing body to go in any time and really excluded the public, the court would be like, no. And you get a bad ruling, but no one's ventured down that road yet. But so I just want you to know that.
Okay.
So any tweaks to language, I don't think taking out both domestic and foreign changes anything. That one's pretty minor. But
Yeah.
I just wanted you guys to know that while you're thinking this through.
I'd just assume keep it as close to the state statute, the state of the game.
Yeah.
And I mean, some don't have it at all. They just say.
I was going to say, is there any reason
Yeah, they
that
just
you don't
have.
just say
Yeah.
that last paragraph? I think it's kind of interesting to have in there just because it lets people know without going and looking up the Colorado Open Meetings Law, the kind of things that you could go to open or executive session for.
Well, and if state statute changes later on, then it still gives us protection.
Well, yeah, there is that, but
And the advantage to having ones that are so close, and I will say D is verbatim from the state statute,
Okay.
is that you can rely on the case law that interprets any of these. The further you go away from them, the further you're out on your own, as to whether or not you're coming in under an interpretation of that language that's proper. So just food for thought.
I guess what you're saying is, as written today, this is bordering on the edge of what may be challenged in court?
No,
Or the opposite?
No, I don't think I'd go so far to say that. I think the issue is let's say the open meetings law changes. Let's say one of these exceptions gets removed. I think there's an open question in Colorado whether a home rule municipality can continue to rely on its charter basis to go into executive session. There are some charters out there that don't correspond to the open meetings. This one, the risk right now, very low because they're very close. But if it ever were to change or be modified, then there
It's
would be a
written.
question for the town, do we need to change ours? That kind of thing, so, yeah.
I think it's more the issue, right? I'm sorry.
Go.
I mean, I think the issue is really, we could just put in there, we follow state statute. The issue is state statute changes for some reason, and we want to have these. So right now, these reflect all of the same.
Right.
State statute, which is fine.
And I guess that's the question for this commission is decide, does this look good enough? Should state statutes change in the future? Do we like what we see
Well,
so far?
My answer is, we like what we see. Does it go overboard in some areas? I think to Catherine's point is, the verbiage here the verbiage here has been defended in case law for going into executive session. If we were to write it ourselves and we were challenged.
Totally understand. Yeah. I guess to Dalton's point about bullet D, like, for example.
The only thing I was specifically interested, just because I know there are countless various definitions for terrorism specifically, and there's not really a lot of times in my experience like agreed upon definitions of such, which is why I was almost in this instance wondering if it's better just to be a bit vaguer and looking at just special detail of any security arrangements or investigations that could more than likely fall under the parameters, any sort of terrorism that individuals on the town council or the mayor could determine that as such, as some sort of security arrangement or investigation? Or is it better just to kind of enumerate that, including defenses against this?
I can envision this being used that there's some, I don't know, now I'm just, something going on with the water supply or something, and these are the mitigations we're gonna do, and you have an executive session for it, would fall under these.
Oh,
kinds of
yeah.
things, right? So, but maybe to your point, you just wanna put security pieces under there, I don't know. Fine.
Any other kind of thoughts, Heather?
Having been in the room enough times when they've adjourned to executive session and half the room looks at each other and is like, what, why? I like having these, and I'm usually the one who likes to keep this even simpler. I like having these in here because to our discussion that started this evening is educating our town members and each other at the same time. This, I think, helps describe what the executive sessions may include without divulging what they are.
I'm fine like leaving.
Next section?
Yeah, I'm fine leaving D in place. Yeah, I was just kind of curious there.
Any questions on 2, 3, 4?
A big question mark on 4. The provisions of this section are specifically intended to supersede any conflicting.
That's the statement to say, we're home rule, we make our own rules for executive session. So like I was saying, if
Okay.
the open meetings law ever changed, that would be the language the town would rely on to defend itself. I don't know if it would be successful, but that would be part of it, so. Okay,
This one, I think we can really shorten.
the vacancies one?
Yes.
Okay,
I do like the idea of putting in something somewhere, maybe here, maybe in the mayor pro tem section, that the mayor pro tem accedes to the office of mayor. But then it seems like the way we're doing it now is that leaves a vacancy on the town council, and then that is filled by appointment. And I think that's all that really needs to be said. And they've got all kinds of stipulations here about, the person with the fourth most votes can fill a vacancy, but only if they've had 10% of the vote, and if not, then blah, blah, blah. I just think that's too complicated.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, during our first reading, we did cut all of that out.
Yeah.
Oh, we already got rid of all of that? Okay, good.
Yeah,
that's why I was
all.
like, did I
Yeah,
not?
this
Did I
one
not?
Doesn't have any of that.
Yeah, we've already eliminated a
Perfect.
decent amount there. Yeah.
Okay.
Can we go back up to the language
Absolutely.
right there?
Yeah, so all of this is what's been cut.
I thought I was reading the wrong version.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So on the bottom of number 4, 4A, it says the council shall adopt by resolution procedures for filling any such vacancy. We had talked about the idea of such vacancy within 90 days preceding the next regular municipal election shall be filled by candidates running in the election. I think we talked about that concept. Should that be in here, or should that be
I think,
left by?
and maybe I misunderstood, but I think we talked about, you didn't want council making an appointment within that 90 days to put their finger on the election in any
Right.
way. Yeah.
Yes.
Can we
It's a-
double check the code? Because I think it says 180 days.
The Superior Code?
Yeah.
I think we did have like some debate on the specific
And I
number.
thought we took it from 180 to 90.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, so we decided to shorten that.
Yeah, I believe we,
I think we
Okay.
consciously
Yeah,
made
so-
that change.
Yeah.
If it has more than 180 days, it shall be filled by appointment. So you could not call an election.
So
Yeah.
in practice,
Well, yeah.
say someone gets on the council, it's November 28th.
Oh, an odd year or an even year?
Sorry. No, so let's say within 30 days of them being elected and sitting on council, they resign. They still have 3.25 of their term, 3.25
lot.
years of their term left. We're saying that will be filled by appointment.
Yeah.
And that's
Until
always
the
done,
next,
right?
until the next election.
Yeah.
So that person doesn't serve that whole 4-year term remaining.
It would be-
They only serve less than 2.
When that happens, though, couldn't you end up with a case where all the council members would be elected in the same year? If terms had been going from a 4-year to a 2-year?
We got close
I think
last
that
time.
could like technically happen, but I feel
Then it
the
gets fixed
odds
in the
of
next
that.
election.
Yeah.
But does it? So then when they get elected, so I've been appointed for 2 years, so the normal term would have been 4. I go to the next 2, then I have another 4-year
No, you
term.
don't.
No, you have a 2-year.
No.
You only have a 2-year.
So what we
Yeah.
normally do is,
Okay,
what we
thank
normally do
you.
is the last position would be the 2-year
That's right.
term.
Okay,
Whoever gets.
okay.
That's how they keep it.
That, okay, thank you.
But you're right, if you don't do that, it gets out of whack.
Because we had, what, 2 or 3 appointments on this last board?
Yeah. And they're all with the 2-year.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, this doesn't say it has to be by appointment. It also says it can be a special election.
Yeah.
So in your scenario of 30 days after someone gets on the board, they resign, then you can call for a special election still.
Yeah, you could.
Sorry, Clint, what were you saying? Fill it with people who are running? What was that again?
So
The way
within,
it was written,
except no appointment shall be made within, well, just like it's written up here, yeah, within, if it's within 90 days of the election, the theory is that the people are going to be running a campaign, and those people should be the ones elected by the voters rather than the council making an appointment that close to an election.
That close to an election.
Preceding,
that within.
yes.
Because
So
Before
I
election.
think your 90 days may not work as well there, because there will be a short window where your people are circulating petitions, or maybe they're picking them up, and you won't know who all the candidates are. And so you won't be able, if you say, except no appointment shall be made within 90 days preceding the next regular election, of current candidates for office or something. I think that's what you're getting at. Is that right?
Well,
Am I
think
misunderstanding?
We go vacant for those 90 days.
That's right.
Well, I'm just trying to understand a little bit more about what
Just
you
go
I think we're good. I think I'm good with what.
Okay.
Fine with
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm good with the way
Okay.
it's written. Yeah, the way it's written is fine.
Okay.
yeah.
But there's nothing, is there anything in here that says, though, that there should be a special election? Or
I
we're
think it
leaving?
goes back to the ordinance
there's-
section 314303. That's maybe what-
Which one, I'm sorry, Jeff?
References 314303. Because it also says, if a special election is ordered, it shall be held as soon as practical. So basically saying filling the vacancy applies back to the ordinance on how you fill it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the ordinance says today, but if we want to change it, then either we change the ordinance.
gotcha.
Or we-
Okay.
or we codify it here.
Is the last sentence there needed, the council shall adopt by resolution procedures for filling any such vacancy?
I think anytime, what does that mean? It means anytime there's a vacancy, someone has to make a resolution to do it X, right?
or they just follow the resolution that's already in place, right?
Well,
I don't think it's necessary to answer your question.
Okay, because it seems to kind of contradict everything before it, or it seems to,
I think if I'm recalling the conversation correctly, I think you wanted to set this like no-go appointment zone. That's the limitation that's on them. But beyond that, you wanted to give them the freedom to
Yeah.
choose an
How
appointment or
to.
choose an election or whatever. And I think that's what that sentence was for, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
So you have to make a resolution, don't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
well, that says adopt by resolution, yes.
Right, so I think that sentence is in there.
So they can choose either
A or
way,
B, right.
any time.
Right.
Yeah.
So the resolution would be either to appoint somebody or say, no, we're going to hold a special election. Or
whatever
we're
else.
going to keep it vacant because we're
Or what
too
else is-
close.
right.
Yeah,
What is 40, 41, since you have the code up, what is 4103?
Yeah, this is actually looking,
3143.
yeah, it's actually looking at mayor, board of trustees, and election compensation.
So the statutory reference?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
So the Board of Trustees has the power by appointment to fill all vacancies on the board or other office. And the person so appointed shall hold the office till the next regular election until the successor is elected and has complied with another statute. The board also has the power to fill a vacancy in the board or other elective office by ordering an election to fill the vacancies until the next regular election and until a successor has been elected and blah, blah, blah. If the board, at the time the vacancy occurs or within 60 days thereafter, lacks sufficient number of members to establish a quorum to fill the vacancy as provided, subsection 1, the town clerk, without further action of the board, shall call a special election to be held as soon as practical after the to fill the vacancy until the term of the office of the successor is elected. Da, 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 da.
No, I think if there's not enough people on the board, you have to have a quorum for the board.
oh,
Yeah.
there's not enough people to
To actually cover it.
make an appointment.
So I think we're fine. I think written as is, I think we're fine.
Is there controversy with even a 2-year term, in my example, being filled by appointment over a special election? It's granting the council to do either based on their
Yes, there could be controversy.
choice.
Yeah.
But that's why they have to make a resolution and people can come
Yeah.
debate and express.
That's why the resolution.
Then people
So,
have to vote, or they have to.
just to be clear,
Okay, I'm getting this now. Yeah, makes sense.
are we sort of prompting them to change the code? Because the code really doesn't say anything about special elections, it just says appointments.
No, it's just special election. You should just read the section.
Oh.
I read the
code for
statute, that's what applies to you
That's not
now.
superior.
that-
Oh, the state statute.
Yeah.
The state statute.
Yeah, that's the state statute.
So there's a vacancy section in your code too.
Yes.
Yeah.
That says it gives 180 days, and then it says, shall be filled by appointment by a majority vote of the Board of Trustees. So are we saying we would like them to change that?
Yeah, so this would basically supersede the code.
But I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what, logistically, when we get this done, do you guys go, does staff has to go through and look at all the ordinances that
Yeah,
are
I
in
think they
conflict with
do.
this then,
Oh, yeah, there's a
Yes.
huge like back-end project to go through the entire code and make sure it's all compliant.
Yes. But we haven't changed a lot.
Yeah.
But you don't have to,
We don't have
if
to
you don't
go.
want to participate in that, you don't have to, because that's going to be up to the town council, right? They have to do all
A
that.
lot of
so.
ordinances.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cost with going home rule. Okay.
Okay. Any other details here? All that cut.
So is there a state statute for emergency powers, and how does this compare to all this?
What'd you say? I'm sorry?
I'm assuming we're going to have the emergency powers?
Yeah.
Sorry. So does state statute provide a set of emergency powers, or is this all
Something they
newly
wrote.
drafted verbiage?
There are state statutes regarding emergency powers. They're pretty vague and they're mostly at the state level. So a lot of communities have adopted this similar provisions through ordinance to kind of, I mean, this is even before the pandemic, right? Floods, fires, you guys know. You know, you need something in there. I do want to can I go back up to this section right here?
How are you doing that?
So a council member elected by special election to fill a vacancy is elected to complete the vacated terms. I interpret that to be different than what we talked about,
You're right.
where the person is only going to the next election.
By the vacant,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
by
because
the
if
next
they-
election.
If they get appointed 6 months in, kind of like what your example,
Yeah,
6
no,
months
no,
into
you're
there,
right.
and it's a 4-year term, then they're going the entire 4 years.
So should we change that terminology from vacated term to next election?
It's up to you. I just wanted to point out the distinction between, because this is if they're elected, so the voters have chosen this person.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a distinction between the appointment that only serves because the board is choosing them.
If a special election is held and the voters vote this person in, then they should serve, in my opinion, they should serve the full length of the term.
Right, so in Ryan's example, they would serve that full
4 years.
Three and three
quarters term.
The appointment only applies to the next special election.
Right.
I just wanted
The
to
next election.
Regular election.
Yep.
make sure you were okay with that distinction. Okay, all right, sorry, emergency powers, yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, these are much more common. I don't know if it needs to be in the charter. I don't know if you have I'm not aware whether you have an emergency ordinance or emergency process in your code right now. I'd be shocked if you didn't, but.
I did notice that this isn't a separate section in the Eagle. It's just, it's a line item under the like powers of the mayor or something. It's just kind of condensed.
Question I had on section 1.4 is talking about the, and shall then revert to council members in order of their seniority. And is that by election seniority or is that their age?
What was age? I think.
No, it's by the
Election.
Elected, oh, their age.
Time on the board.
Oh, yeah, time on the board.
So if we keep this section, would it be helpful to clarify that?
We can absolutely clarify that. Do you want me to pull up Eagles? Oops, sorry.
I also, before we move on, just with the numbering scheme, should we have that in the case of emergency, just detail like that?
Yeah, I made a note
Yeah,
up front to change them all
Okay.
through the thing, yeah. So I want to point out one thing that's sometimes a topic of discussion, and it's this unilateral section. A lot of times there's a time limit. You'll see a 7 days or something like that. This is broader than that, so I just wanted to raise that issue that you may feel comfortable with that. Or you may not want to put a date number in the charter, so.
Yeah, I have a note next to that saying good. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't,
All right.
I don't know.
I think an
Tend to
emergency can definitely last
anticipate
more than
an
7 days.
emergency.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I think back with like the Marshall Fire in
That was-
particular, and it's like, I don't know if we can, I would be uncomfortable putting a specific figure here.
Yeah, we had a meeting, 2 days after it. So, I think the general desire during any emergencies to get
Yeah.
going as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But I think having a time frame in here probably is not appropriate.
And then if you don't mind going back up.
Nope, not at all.
In like that new kind of line 1, protection of life and property, would it be life, should we keep it life and property, or should we do life or property?
Your call.
I would hate to choose over life or property. Just the wording. So how is it worded now?
So it means
It's got an
doesn't
and in
have
there.
to threaten both of those
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
at the same time. So you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Because I was
or-
thinking
right.
specifically, with some, like the flood, for instance, way back when, that was largely property. It wasn't protection of maybe life specifically. So I was thinking or would be maybe better there because we can look at just property or life in general. Power a single word has. Okay.
All right.
Well, I
Now-
want to take us back to the beginning of this conversation, which was, is this section necessary?
Oh, the emergency powers section?
Yeah.
Just compare real quick. I don't know if it'll be quick, but.
Do you want me to go to Eagle?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see.
I
if
think they're pretty much the same, except that it's just under the mayor. It's in the mayor definition, not its own section.
if I can type
what I
faster.
remember
Does
seeing.
it say all the same things?
I
pretty
didn't
much?
go into the town, oh, yeah, I think so.
Oh, great. Totally did not get me where I wanted to
Mine
go.
is succession. Oh, no, you're right. It's all this emergency stuff.
Okay.
Bottom left.
Bottom left.
Oh, that's probably not where I want to be either.
Home rule charter under town council.
Hmm?
Home rule charter under.
No.
There we go.
Oops, that's the code.
You said it's under the mayor?
No, I think that you clicked on the municipal code.
Right, the charter is,
the charter.
the charter's part of it.
I see it. There's
Yeah.
6.04 emergency
In the,
ordinances.
it was under, oh,
That's emergency ordinances, it's different.
Not powers.
in the charter, it's
Article 4.
Okay.
4.01 is the mayor, and then it's, there we go. Yes.
This one?
In the
right
case
here?
of, yes, line, are those called, what are those called? Lines?
Subsection?
Subsections.
4?
4 and 5. It's more succinct.
Is it missing it's just missing the order of succession, right?
5 is, I think 5 talks about succession.
It's not as specific to, it doesn't say seniority.
It says line of succession.
I think we already got a draft, and I'm fine leaving, what is it, in there?
So is one of the questions, we move it under mayor? Is that one of your questions too?
Yeah, just for the purposes of just being more succinct.
I'd be fine with that.
I like the fact that it, like, section 3 talks about the town council having some of these powers as well. Just kind of keeps it, it's not just under mayor. The way we have it written here, it really is addressing the operation of the government, so. kind of like how it
Yeah,
is, so.
actually, to that point, should an emergency happens, where's the emergency section?
So it's easier to find.
It's just,
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
We're good? Okay. All right, congratulations.
we're not going to talk about succession?
We have 25 more minutes, right?
Yeah. So next town
We on?
officers.
Can we strike 403 and 404, which are the judge and proseker, since I don't think we
Yeah.
have that?
Oh, we don't have a
Yeah.
judge.
Or we do.
We do?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope you do.
You've never been to court?
I've never been to court, sorry.
Very law-abiding.
Oh, yes. We have
Okay,
a-
we have a prosecutor. In those two instances,
Yes.
since we've already addressed them, is
They
it
meet
written
right
any
here.
different than what we have today from that perspective?
I don't, let me see
sorry,
what you got.
I'm
You should come down. I think
I've
it's Tuesdays.
assumed that you are an expert on what our code is today, so
Sorry.
I apologize.
Wednesdays.
We do have a long description for the town manager that's,
So,
Pretty
let's
specific.
see. There don't appear to be qualifications for the judge, like the license to practice law qualification and good standing in the state of Colorado. I don't see that in here. That's probably the only difference, really. I'm not sure that, I'm just looking, sorry. It doesn't talk about qualified assistant judges, but that's a standard practice, what's in 2. 3 is, that may be an informal process in the town of Superior. That's not laid out in your code. The reporting part is not laid out in your code. But if they're serving a definite year of 1 term, then they're being reappointed annually, and that may be when that kind of discussions happening about the report to the town and that kind of thing. So it's somewhat the same. The term of the judge is 2 years under your town code, which is standard. So I don't know why it's 1 year. I don't know why Erie wanted 1 year.
I mean, here we still, with the at least, oh no, that's the reporting. I'd be fine keeping it 2 years.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Could we go back to the town manager section?
Sure.
So 4.01, item 1.
Yeah.
Well, that first paragraph probably needs to be number 1, and then just.
I will do that. I will change that throughout on the.
Okay, and so then number 1, it says, town council may terminate by a majority vote. I made myself a note to make that supermajority.
I was thinking the same exact thing, but I thought there might be pushback on that.
I just, well, and the other thing is, then, does that mean the majority of who's present, at a given meeting? I mean, you could have a
Well, should
weird.
we jump back to town manager right after we finish this point about the judge real fast on 1 year or 2 years, just to have that specifically detailed?
Okay, sure.
I like 2 years.
I think we're all in agreement on 2.
Because the town council could get rid of a judge if,
Judges can only be removed for certain malfeasance or misconduct. They
for
cannot
cause.
just be removed, like the town manager or the town attorney could.
oh, really?
But the way this is worded, it says by majority vote.
No, but if we.
But it
apply-
has to
if
be
we give
for
them 2 years,
cause.
We give them 2 years.
Yeah, but see this sentence I've highlighted right here? Removal during a term shall only be for cause as defined under state law, that reference.
Oh.
So that's the malfeasance, misconduct. And the reason why judges are called out special is that you don't want a political body
Yeah.
removing and appointing judges back and forth to get the
Right.
results they want out of muni court. You want the judge to be a little bit more insulated. And that may be why it's only 1 year in the chart, in this charter from Erie, is they wanted, because what you can do is when the judge is at the end of their term, like, you just put out an RFP and get a new judge, and then you're not removing them during their term. So,
Okay.
I'm guessing.
So, I mean, to reappoint is just, again, a motion, right?
Yeah, you typically reappoint all your officers at the same time,
What's the downside of it only being 1 year? Are judges going to say, well, I don't want to.
Job security, I would say.
I mean, are the judges
Maybe
gonna-
you'd have less judges apply, I don't know. That's just speculation, so.
I don't know, I think having a judge longer than 1 year, I mean, they're getting in a rhythm by the time you get to the year, and so I think 2 years is a good number.
Yeah.
They don't get, I don't know what your experience is here, but they're not switched over very
We
often.
had when I was here, we had 2 judges, and they were both fantastic.
Okay.
Let you off?
He has been to court now. All right,
All right.
okay.
But now I want to go back
Back up to the town manager, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have some real concerns about this, and I think that there just can be some personality things that go on, and I think it should be changed to supermajority, and then somehow also capture that it needs to be the full board present, that if it's a vote, it needs to be the full board versus 2 members are away on vacation, and mysteriously that vote comes up and it's the majority of them. It just,
right.
A smaller number, just.
So the language, the then in office, I think covers your second issue.
Okay.
Because if it just said council members present, that would mean the only
Okay,
ones
then in-
at the
that
meeting.
was the
Then in
question.
office means
Means
you've got to
everybody-
count
You got to count them.
all the full seats,
Okay.
appointed
All right,
or
then
elected.
then that concern is gone.
So
Okay.
I would completely disagree on the supermajority. I think the town managers have been around a long time, and I think everyone appreciates that, but getting a supermajority to remove a town manager, I think you're hamstringing people to actually have to stick with that. I think if you can get 4 people to say remove them, I think that's more than sufficient to say remove a town manager. Things are going different.
What is supermajority in this case? It would be
People.
six?
Two-thirds.
Majority to remove.
I don't want a
So
supermajority. I'm
five
saying
as opposed
If
to
you can get
four.
if you can get 4 people out of 7 to say remove it, then that should be sufficient for removing a
Okay.
town manager. It's not done willy-nilly and people.
No,
I
we
mean,
went through that.
You what?
In our board, we went through that, and I bet it was majority, everyone agreed he should be removed. So, but it seemed like at one point that there was, well, I don't want to get into that. So, I do like, because I agree with Clint, that if you got a couple people that are really, want to have a go at the town manager, that I think you need to have that super majority.
But it's one vote. I mean,
But in this
that's
condition,
your point.
in this condition, you already have of all 7 members. So I would agree if you have an issue where it's not the entire board that's sitting.
Right.
If it's the entire council that's sitting, then it's still 4 out of 7. There's many scenarios where you're gonna wanna say, if you can get 4 people who think the direction of the town is going wrong, sitting on the board, then I think that should be sufficient. I don't think you should be hamstringing them at all by saying you need to actually get 5 out of 7.
Others.
We've been there. as well.
I don't know enough about this topic. Like, what's been the, go ahead. I mean, like,
Yeah, having not been in this position, it seems like if you have 4 people that feel strongly about it, they should be able to convince one more person.
Oh my gosh, no.
No?
That's
No, so then,
Strong rhetoric, because it's like, yeah.
any other?
no, I'm just curious, like, why supermajority versus majority? Like, I've heard you hint at it, but I'm curious about your rationale.
I feel like it would be a very significant move that a town board would make to remove a manager. And it seems like you should have
overwhelming.
an overwhelming, i.e. supermajority vote to do that.
I think it's a massive decision, and
that's,
I think that you're really, you're changing the town, and that's a big move. And I think that you do need to have, with all due respect, Jeff, I do think that we need more people to vote that way.
so I would say, given the number of times we've removed a manager,
Yeah.
and it's not always, it's a philosophical, often handling of how that manager handles the board, and as the board changes, again, it's 2-year terms as they change, then you're hamstringing those people who are coming in who are voting. So if you have 4 people come in and there's a philosophical difference, and they think the town manager for the next 2 years should be something very different, and you had 4 people coming in or 2 new people coming in, you're hamstringing those people who are running this, who are on the board with operating.
Oh, I
with that
see.
executive.
So the voters said, we don't like what's going on with this town manager. This person is basically here for as long as they want. We don't like the direction of the town. We voted in this new block of people to help get rid of that and affect that change.
Yeah, you're not.
4 not, and 2 are sticking, or 3 are sticking around versus 2. Is that what you're saying?
You're effectively not allowing change to happen in the time cycles for elections. And like you said,
Yeah.
it is a major change, and
Yeah.
people aren't taking it willy-nilly. But if you can get 4 people to say, hey, now is the time that we need to take a direction in the town,
Yeah.
then that's gonna happen. I mean, and you're getting, I've been on split boards, right? I don't know how your board was, but I've been on very split
Yeah.
boards in the past, and yeah, it's philosophical differences. And when the board's taking one direction, if you're basically saying, yeah, you need to get 5 out of 7.
I think
It's a huge number.
this town, I don't think I know, this town has been blessed with our current staff. And I think what I had heard, that the average lifespan of a town manager is like 5 years in a town. And we've had our town manager, I'm not saying he's in jeopardy or anything like that, I'm just saying that he's been here as a town manager for how long?
20.
And then before that, he was assistant town manager. So he's been in this town for 25 years. And I just hate to see if something like that changed, and then all of a sudden you get back in that cycle where they're turning over every 5 years. I mean, we've got a good thing. And I would hate to see, that disrupt. But at the other side, I guess we could get somebody really bad, and we don't have the numbers to overturn. So
But I think if you had somebody really bad, you would get the numbers.
But I don't think it's just, I mean, bad and good when it comes to how someone manages the town is really again, I'll use the word philosophical. It's how someone's doing something, right? I mean, we've gone through this with open communications and whether you want things more communicative or less communicative. And when the board split 3 to 4, that's often the difference of how things happen within these the transition. Again, like I said, if you're basically hamstringing any people being elected from making the change at the top level of the town's government, then you're basically locking in the person to suffice or to fit the minority on the board.
I'm wondering, just bearing the time in mind, and we focused a lot on basically one vote, since this is also the first reading, we can highlight this, maybe something that we can come back to. And then decide from there.
Fascinated by this topic.
Yeah. And I think it's one
conversation.
Yeah. And I'd like to continue it, but I also want to just be mindful of time as well.
Good call.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
But any other kind of sections or information here?
I don't think there's any new powers in here that haven't been are part of the town manager already.
The town clerk is currently appointed by the board. And so this would shift the town clerk to be hired and by the town manager, so.
I didn't know that, really.
The town clerk was reported to the manager already.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm sure they work very closely together, but it's a statutory appointment.
How? I did not know. I guess because we always had the same clerk when I was in office.
Yes.
How are, I think across Colorado, what's typical is the town clerk reports to the manager or appointed by the elected body?
The first one, yeah.
Hired
And
by
I
the town
represent a
manager.
home rule that, so much more of a kind of pyramid structure with town manager at the top. I represent a home rule that has the chief of police, the town manager, and the town clerk all appointed by the council. Luckily, those 3 positions, those 3 people get along, but if they didn't, it's pulling and pushing, so.
Well, I'm in the spirit of certain things are working today, and so I guess if that's the case, I would say revert to what we have right now, as opposed to trying to make a change that way.
See, this would be a good question that I would ask the town manager. What are their thoughts on this? Because you're saying
town clerk?
perhaps the town clerk, but I think, so you're saying that right now, the town clerk is not hired by the town manager, they're actually appointed. So if we had to bring in a new town clerk, we'd do interviews, the board would do the interviews and then appoint them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know it may not be like functioning like that.
You replaced Phil, that's right.
We've been to we've had 3 total town clerks in the last couple of years, and the board did not interview any of them. So,
I don't know, so I don't want to, so here's the thing, is the Board of Trustees, under state law for statutory town, appoints a town clerk.
Oh, but they haven't.
well, and I think
And
staff identified, and we
The
formally.
employment process
Yes.
maybe
Yeah.
be handled by,
Yeah.
but that's not always the case in that kind of structure.
Yeah, I think administratively, the staff, the manager identified the candidates, went through the process, and then the board appointed.
It was kind of more
Appointed
like a
them.
formality.
It was a
like, well,
formality,
Because
but
they were
appointed.
already employed by the town.
one was not.
The one I knew was the town attorney.
The short,
Directly by the
yeah.
board. I didn't know.
So there's 3
Patricia.
positions, actually. It's clerk, town attorney, and town treasurer in the statute that are appointed by the board. And I think the town treasurer for Superior is actually your finance director. I think that's what your town attorney told me, so, yeah.
But that also was never our appointment.
Yeah.
Right. I'm fine with putting this under the town manager.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Shifting this. I think that it makes it, I think that's the way it really is functioning now.
Sounds like it.
I think that's the
You caught us all
way.
by surprise.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
So just kind of leave the language as is.
Yes.
I think it takes away whatever administrative function the board's been handling, so.
And then the prosecutor as well is the same as same as today at that meeting.
Yeah, I talked to your town attorney, and for what it's worth, her position was that she's come, I don't know who your town prosecutor is, it may be our office, but I don't know. She was comfortable with the board continuing that practice of appointing that town prosecutor. I will say this is a bit unusual in a home rule charter. Typically, it's just not mentioned. The town prosecutor it's just silent, and the entity just works it out however they want it to work.
I
So,
mean,
your call.
do we want to have this section here?
I think having it, instead of relying on it just working out, I think it's good to have it in there.
Doesn't sound like it's put it anywhere else.
Yeah.
But is there, are we limiting ourselves by putting it in there? Is there some kind of limitation that might come
No,
up?
no,
Okay.
I don't think there's any harm. No, the town attorney is, sometimes a person can fill both functions. So, but the town attorney's that one, so.
No one's going to
So
be on
we-
the photo radar, just going to go in.
So back, we've kind of skipped, did we skip the town attorney section? or
We've
did
jumped
we-
around a little
we
bit.
jumped around,
Sorry
okay.
about that.
So with the town attorney section, we contract with a firm, not necessarily an individual. We have a kind of a primary individual, but we occasionally have another individual that sits in and like yourself for special needs. So should there be, this language kind of speaks to a person. Mm-hmm. Are we limiting ourselves in some way that by having it worded this way versus we contract with a firm?
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know how, some communities do it differently. I don't know how Superior does it. When the actual appointment occurs, you may appoint a specific person, but you've contracted for legal services for, with the whole firm. So you appoint an individual, but you contract with the whole firm, and that's fine. I had a client last week appoint the firm
Yeah.
as the town attorney, so,
Okay.
and I think their charter reads like this one does, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
all right.
think, yeah. I think one is appointed specifically. She is our town attorney, but then she has other people fill in.
Any further questions on?
Provides the flexibility for future years,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Any questions with?
I'm sorry, on
That's okay.
on town attorney, number 1, it says town attorney shall serve at the will without a definite term at compensation. It seems like that should be and/or compensation. But I do recall us fixing compensation, so I don't understand. It seems like this would be in conflict with what we're doing, because we do set a compensation for the,
No, I think it's without a definite term, comma, at a compensation.
Yeah.
Without a definite, so serve at the will of town council without a definite term with compensation fixed by
Or
resolution.
at a compensation or whatever.
Yeah.
Or added
With.
compensation.
With.
With compensation fixed by the.
with. I think with would be
Let's do
better.
with,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I just think there might be an A missing maybe in there, I don't know.
No. Any other additional questions? All right, municipal judge.
Get that one, we're gonna go 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Hope the judge is good. But that's the only thing that gets me a little bit, right, is sort of, if you get a bad judge, then.
But that's tough because you can't, they have the for cause.
I know, that's why the 1
Yeah.
year allows you the flexibility to get rid of them if it's not working out, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to appoint them, renew them.
So I'm sorry, back to the town attorney, one more thing. One of the, I think, important functions that they did, at least as far as the mayor and the board was concerned, is they reviewed agreements or documents requiring the mayor's signature. And that's not mentioned in here. I don't know if it's too much detail or should be implied, but that was, some of these other positions, it talks about specific things that they're doing, and
I think that the will of the town council, I think, covers that, right? That's what we want them to do, that's what they do, right?
I think they can include it in, I mean, there's two sides to that coin, right? You can include that in there. The only concern I would have is like, there's some things the mayor signs that like, they're technically contracts and agreements that aren't really like, don't legal, like maybe aren't involving any money, or they don't really bind the town to anything, or, you know, and so I don't know how Superior works that stuff out, and so I don't know if that'd be too restrictive. But the town council could also, explain that more in detail in ordinance if they wanted to, if they felt like that was an issue.
I'm fine.
I don't know.
I'm fine with that.
I mean, town attorneys, under statute, the town attorney's role isn't defined any more than this.
Okay, that's fine.
This is actually, this is more specific, like the reporting, that's not a statutory requirement, that kind of thing, so. Okay.
Yep. Any questions, municipal judge? Town prosecutor? And town clerk?
Do we need to have the same compensation change in 4041 there?
Yeah,
With compensation.
Yeah, good catch.
Yeah, just make sure that's included for each of the positions.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand, sorry.
Go ahead.
What's going on the town clerk? I'm trying to understand 5 here. Yet nothing contained herein shall require the town clerk to advise any petitioner as to how petition shall be completed prior to their submittal to the town clerk. I'm trying to, is that like, town clerk shouldn't be helpful?
I think that almost,
Well, they're not
Or
required to
obliged?
be.
I don't know, I'm confused a little bit, it just seems.
Something must
is
happen.
my interpretation like they're not in a position, they're not obligated to basically like
Help
give,
someone.
legal advice or support?
That's how it
Support a
feels,
petition.
Yeah.
But it sounds very.
Because I think, but I think that's like part of their neutrality almost.
That's how I read it, was this person cannot guide you to do anything because they're also the one who are validating and checking everything post submitted. So that person cannot answer the questions prior.
We often, that's a legal recommendation we often make to clerks when they're like, can I help this person? You're like, nope.
Don't, yeah.
You can tell them like, you need this many signatures, here's a petition, that kind of, like basics, but you can't be like, this is how you do it.
So shall require is probably the one that lets them be nice if they want to.
They can if they want to.
No, nice.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Given the time and the agenda right now also has Articles 5, 6, and 7, I'm wondering, can we have a motion to move the first readings of Articles 5, 6, and 7 to our next meeting, and then do second reading of all the other items that we
So
reviewed
moved.
today? So, a motion from Commissioner Foster.
Second. Sure.
Second, Commissioner Chu. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved, the motion passes.
I have a
And-
quick question.
yes.
Do you want to add any new stuff after 7?
Yes, so I was wondering, as far as like additional articles, now trying to bear in mind that we're going to be reviewing Articles 4, 5, 6, and 7. How many additional articles do we feel comfortable going through?
I would
How many did you
say
get?
probably no more than 2. My sense is that the boards and commission and ordinances is going to garner a significant amount of discussion at our next meeting, so I would maybe err on the side of fewer items next meeting.
Plus the items we flagged to re-review.
Right.
I am kind of the opinion, also given that Article 8 related to town finances and borrowing, there's going to be a substantial
gonna be a
amount.
lengthy one, yeah.
I think that's probably, more than enough.
So you'd like to add 8 and 9?
I think 9 is
I think
hope for
9,
one.
yeah,
But
I would say
think
we
definitely
can.
add 8 to the-
Yeah, I think we
it's-
can have 9. I'd be optimistic with that.
Yeah.
But
It's a
we
stretch
can.
goal.
I know, we never know. Yeah. We can always move it to the subsequent meeting.
Yeah, I think based on the follow-up that we have with tonight's discussion, plus Articles 5, 6, and 7, I think we're going to be full
Yeah.
at our next meeting, and I think town finances should be the meeting after that.
And we can also always call another meeting after next one if we feel, an additional one. if we
And
feel
in
we need to.
between,
Yeah.
as long as you can logistically meet here, that's fine. Yep.
So end at 7.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So those will be.
So you
the items.
want 8 and 9 on
Yeah.
there? Yes,
Might as well
you
put
got
them
it,
on.
you got
Can't
lost
hurt
me
to
there.
Put them on, right?
Yeah, we can put them on.
Yeah,
You don't,
put
if you don't
8
get
and
to them, you
9.
don't get to them.
Okay.
So I think what would be really useful, again, is how, we can look at how different are these. Yeah, I think this is going to be something that generically, as we start trying to present what the charter looks like, I mean, everyone's going to look at everything the same way we are reading all this stuff. It's like, oh, that word's weird, that word. But in some cases, it can be, well, that's exactly what we're codified today. That's exactly what state statute is. So I think, like you said, some of these things are almost verbatim out of state statute, and that's fine. It'd be good to know that as we go into the next.
Okay.
So that maybe some of it just becomes less discussing, because, yeah.
Yeah, I can look at that and kind of highlight
Okay, I
that
just
for you.
think wordsmithing state
Great.
statute doesn't help us if that's, we might not like it, but.
Yeah.
Right.
That being, yeah, your point.
All right.
I actually have a real quick question. For, when we start talking in 5 and the next time, there's open space in there, and there's ballot language, and there's also the establishing language. That's on the Open Space Committee website, but the ballot language, I have a copy of just because I was on the committee. I couldn't find that anywhere on searching the record. Sometimes it's hard to find, but can I email that to the group? Is that okay? Like, just here for the next meeting, here was the ballot language for the Open
Fine.
Space Fund?
As long
Okay.
as nobody responds.
Yeah, and just for reference, our only open space tax we have is a sales tax, it's not a
Right.
property tax, which is referenced
Right.
here. So
How old is that question?
Oh, it's 20-some years old.
Okay.
It was done in 2002.
Would you mind also
Oh, yeah.
including me, so I'll just have it, okay.
All right. Well, I think we have our marching orders for our next meeting too. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Craycraft, thank you. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Foster. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the meeting of the Home Rule Commission is adjourned.
Thank you.